Oh man. What are you gonna do when you gotta pick up the Rougarou? Ah man, this is good, bro. That's some funny shit. Yo, bro, Devin Haney and his father, they're funny people, bro. They definitely know how to they definitely know how to hype up a situation, bro. That's all I gotta say, man. Hold on, let me keep listening to this. Look, man. Yo, what's going on? Sports archives? Yeah, man. Started the stream kind of late. I was watching the football game. And like I thought the Steelers were going to win easily just because like the Patriots, like I mean they're 2-10 for a reason, you know. So I was kind of shocked to see the Patriots even take up a huge lead, and also didn't really expect. I mean, I didn't expect this game to be close. I thought it was gonna be like 20-0, you know, and Pittsburgh winning. You know, I know the Pittsburgh Steelers have been very deficient on the offensive side of the ball. They just can't really figure out the quarterback situation. But anyway, man, yeah, that's kind of what I saw. You know, I was pretty surprised that the Patriots were able to be victorious. I thought they would tank the rest of the year, mainly so they can get like a really good quarterback. But hey, but look, man, Devin Haney's, bro, these press conferences, they're fucking amazing, bro. I really like their built up. I don't know how great their pay-per-view will do in terms of the sales. I think this is just a regular fight, a regular championship fight. I don't think it's pay-per-view worthy, but they're gonna be testing out the market, so it's gonna be pretty interesting. I think people would have tuned in much more had it been just a regular fight on the zone, but the zone is falling. You know, I'm not gonna say they're crashing, but so far it looks like they don't really understand the market. And then two, you know, they're taking the same approach that Showtime did. And a lot of people have to realize is like people want to stay tuned in to watch, for instance, on Showtime, David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade and Caleb Plant. Maybe you get between 600 to 1 million people tune in on regular Showtime. The minute you make it pay-per-view, you get less than 100,000 to tune in. And they miss out some pretty good fights. I feel like the art of building a free fighter, so to speak, on regular television, everybody's gotten money hungry. Look, I know this sport is tough, but life is tough, you know, and everyone's trying to earn a buck, keep their dollars as well, right? And it's very difficult in boxing with the pay-per-view events. In terms of the larger, broader scale, Sports Archives goes, who you got winning? I got Devin Haney winning, mainly because I just feel that he's faster, right? And he's much fresher. Regis, kind of like Josh Taylor, they've been at 140 for a really long time. They're not that big 140 pounders, you know, and the fact that they're cutting so much weight at the age of 35 that they are now. Josh Taylor might be 31 or 32, but yeah, man, I just feel like kind of in with the new, out with the old. But Regis still has a puncher shot. You know, he's got the left straight, and that's all he's got. I don't think he can knock down Devin Haney with a right hook. He doesn't have Lomachenko footwork, side to side. Doesn't have Lomachenko's pressure, his mental focus, right? Rigas isn't as sharp as Lomachenko. So even though I had Lomachenko beating Devin Haney, the point is Devin still gave Lomachenko a really good fight. And at the age of 24, Lomachenko got beat by Orlando Salido. Devin Haney would not get beat by Orlando Salido. You know, the reason I bring up the comparisons is because even though everybody likes to shit on Devin Haney, right, in terms of where they're at, Devin Haney at 24 and Lomachenko at 24, one dude actually became undisputed and actually is winning their fucking fights. Where Lomachenko brought this two-time gold medalist situation and people try to skyrocket him into his third fight to be a champion, and he fell short. Or no, actually in his third fight, he did become a champion, beating Gary Russell, but not in the second fight. And that's not even a prime Orlando Salido. Anyway, man, so with all that being said, I got Devin Haney just outboxing Rigas, but I would like Devin Haney to get a TKO. He won't knock out Rigas. He's definitely not going to put him to sleep, but he could, finish him by cuts by a million deaths type of thing. You know what I mean? Sports Archives goes, I don't respect Haney anymore. He knows he lost to Lomachenko. Look, man, if there was ever... Sorry, it's death by a million blows. I said death by like 1,000 cuts or some bullshit. Look, man, Haney don't pay off the judges. If there was ever a time where Bob Arum could pay off his judges to make his in-house fighter, Lomachenko, become an undisputed champion, that would have been the night. That would have been the night. Whether Haney knows it that he lost to Lomachenko, this is one thing that you guys have to understand, right? And it's called not just like a self-fulfilling prophecy and whatever the case may be, but it's kind of like a promise that you keep to yourself. It's a relief. When I saw Devin Haney, get the decision, he looked relieved. Even if had he lost or had he won, right? He's always lived up to his word and his promises. You see, it's kind of like same thing with Errol Spence. I'm a big fan of Errol Spence. I had him beating Bud Crawford. I knew Bud Crawford was really good, but you can't knock a man for doing what he's going to do, and he actually goes about doing it, right? Errol said he's going to clean out his side of the street and then get to Bud Crawford last. Whether that's to his detriment, whether the fans wanted or Errol should have fought Bud first, every man in life has a plan. So, for instance, Sports Archives, your plan might be to own $1 million home with a beautiful pool, looking at, the beach side in Florida, right? And your plan might be like, in order for it to get there, you're going to be like, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to make some investments in cryptocurrency. And that's how I'm going to make it. And let's say it takes you 30 years. Well, that was your plan. That was your vision. You know what I mean? That was your code. Who am I to judge your career and your life choices and be like, nah, bro, you shouldn't be a fucking doctor. College education is super expensive. You know what I'm saying? So Devin Haney always wanted to fight Lomachenko, right? He became a paper champion or an email champ, whatever the case may be. But guess what? He didn't have to give us the Lomachenko after George Kambosos. He did it. He still gave it to us because people were still saying, oh, those belts belong to Lomachenko, even though Teofimo beat him. People forget that Devin wanted to fight Teo as well. And Teo, like Lomachenko, they're like, bro, you ain't beat nobody. And it was true. He hadn't fought nobody. But that's one of the things that I don't really like a lot of fighters doing nowadays. You know what I'm saying? And it's, you not baby a fighter, but you're like, oh, you're beneath me. You just think that you're superior. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really like that superiority that other fighters impose on other fighters. You know what I mean? A side, B side. I never liked it when people brought it up into the negotiation table. I always wanted to see the best fight the best. Oh, you haven't proven nobody. You know what I'm saying? For instance, when I spar my nephew, I don't go and tell him, bro, you ain't fought nobody, bro. You gotta win a couple of fights before you fight me or spar me. What the fuck? I don't know, bro. I never encountered a situation. Sports Archives goes, Man, Spence said he's taking the easy route. Come on, man. Yeah, I agree. You know what I'm saying? But even though that's his plan of an easy route, Sean Porter was in an easy fight for fucking Errol Spence. Neither was Kell Brook. Neither was Yordenis Ugas. Every fight that that Spence thought was going to be easy, he got his fucking dentures dropped by Lomachenko. I mean, sorry. He had his dentures dropped by Yordenis Ugas. Yo, what happened here? Fucking Kell Brook was beating and rocked the shit out of Errol. I think like in the 7th round. Brook was winning that fight. And Sean Porter was almost winning. He was going to win that fight as well. So there was never an easy route. It was easier to fight those 3 guys than Bud Crawford for sure. You know what I'm saying? But it was never easy because Spence was fucking losing every single one of those fights. Vince Vargas goes, Loma. Yeah, no, look, man, I'm a big fan of Loma. I'm just trying to shit on him for a little bit before Warp Speed comes in here. He's like starts defending Lomachenko, like, oh man, Loma's this. Nah, just fucking around. Hold on, guys. Well, I don't even know why it kicked me out of the screen sharing. Look, man, what are you gonna do when you gotta pick up the Rougarou? That's some funny shit, bro. That's funny. I don't know if you guys have seen this press conference. I'm a little late. Obviously, there's a whole lot of news going on in the sport of boxing. I'm sorry, guys. Hopefully this cough doesn't linger. It's been bugging me all day. I don't feel sick or anything, but yeah, man, I wish I should have brought some cough drops. Let me play this a little bit in the background. Let me see what he's saying.
Ask him, sir. Ask him because the execution date. You know he can't take no fucking date. That was Saturday. The warrant has been served. That's all I have to say, bro. Tell the people the truth. Tell the people the truth.
Oh man, this is good, man. This is good. Sports Archives goes, do you dislike Lomachenko? Nah, I don't dislike Lomachenko, man. I'm actually a real big fan of Lomachenko. I like his skills, but I feel he's extremely overrated. He's extremely overrated. I don't understand how you can be a 2-time gold medalist, right, and lose to Orlando Salido. I don't understand how you can sport a record of 399 wins with 1 loss and get beat by dudes under 23 years of age, Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. And yet somehow Lomachenko still gets praised as this, like if he's the epitome of boxing. That's just like my contention with him. It's not so much that I dislike Lomachenko. It's just crazy how people revere him and put him up against this pedestal like a godlike figure, as if he's Ronaldinho or Lionel Messi, when he comes up short in his biggest fucking fights. And the craziest thing is, like, he's getting beat by, like, his 3 losses. Orlando Salido was like 35 years old and was pretty inactive. And like Devin Haney ain't fought nobody. And like Lomachenko couldn't knock him out, even though Devin's pillow fisted. And he spotted Teofimo Lopez 6 fucking rounds. It reminds me of Kyle Shanahan, where it's like, bro, you blew a 28-3 lead. Like, how, man? It's like when the Chargers were up 24-0 in halftime against their Jaguars last year, bro. And they lost 28-24. It's absurd to me. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it does not compute. You know what I'm saying? Vince Vargas goes, Warp Speed's favorite fighter, Loma. Yeah, bro. Yeah. Before we ever started going live, it was mostly in respect to Warp Speed, because he always loved talking boxing, man. And we would have these 3-hour-long discussions, bro, about Lomachenko. I kid you guys not. It was insane. And yeah, it's quite ridiculous, man. He gets really defensive. And I don't even know why, man. I don't even know why. But look, man, going back to Devin Haney and the news of this of today. PBC signs with Amazon Prime. That's their broadcaster. And honestly, that's gonna fucking suck. It's going to suck. I was hoping PBC would work with the zone. Having one area for just simply the sport of boxing. Now it's Amazon Prime. I don't know about you guys, man. Amazon Prime has pretty good fucking content. There's this show, I think it's in the first or second season, maybe even the third season. I'm not even too sure, but it's called The Boys. It's a pretty good fucking show. It's kind of like the dark secret behind consumerism and superheroes, right? So, like, for example, there's that guy that plays Flash, Ezra Miller. I feel like The Boys is based on that dude, how these guys are these superheroes, quote unquote, are very devious. They play hero for the camera, but behind the curtains, man, these guys are the worst despicable human beings, right? Doing disgusting things, acts of perversions and murdering people and things of that nature, right? Anyway, if you guys never seen the show The Boys, it's fantastic. Sorry, man, I'm gonna be all over the place. Warp Speed is the one that keeps me structured, but he's not here just yet. But Vince Vargas goes, yeah. Oh shit, yeah, I already read that one. Look, man, I think Devin Haney could stop Rigas Prograis by TKO. You know, just jabbing him, throwing a lot of 1-1-2s, step back 2-3s, pivoting, circling them, and like giving them hematomas. That's one way I can see Devin Haney getting a TKO. He's not going to sleep Rigas, right? He could drop him with a check left hook, right? Take the legs out of Rigas. Rigas gets hit a lot. I don't know if you guys, the first time I ever saw Rougarou was against Joel Diaz's son, Joel Diaz Jr. It only lasted 4 or 5 rounds. This might have been back in 2016, probably like a decade ago. And Rigas was getting tagged. But the problem was, if you exchange with Rigas, kind of like Josh Taylor, man, Rigas, he's got power and he's got a chin. As for Devin Haney and his father, they talk more than they actually are as good fighters, right? In terms of the actions speak for themselves, they're pretty boring fighters, right? Even though Devin is going about, you know, his business the correct way, the way how he plots and fighting the good fights, I mean, he's doing his fucking job. But in terms of how eloquent they speak, they're not that eloquent when they're fighting. Sports Archives goes, I'm going to head out. Have a good night, brother. Yeah, man, it's pretty late. I reckon it's probably like midnight on the east coast of Florida. But yeah, brother, thank you for tuning in, man. Have a good night. Get some rest. And yeah, man. Wait, today is the 8th or the 7th? Okay. So the 7th. So the fight's on Saturday. Look, man. Devin should win. And not just because Rigas can't make adjustments, right? He had a whole fight, 36 minutes with Danielito Sorria, in which he got dropped in the first or the second round, and he couldn't really cut off the ring. So we already know what Devin could do to easily win this fight, and that would be to fight like Danielito Sorria. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I had Sorria beating Rigas that night. I knew they weren't going to give it to him for 2 factors. One is Rigas just signed with Eddie Hearn. 2, he's fighting in his hometown, so I knew the judges weren't going to pander to him. But in terms of ring generalship, Danielito Sorria made his fight. He won that fight because that was his style of fighting. But it was a boring-ass fight. I don't know if Rigas at that time was a champion or if they were fighting for a vacated belt, but none of those two deserved to be a champ that night. It should have really been a draw. But if there was, you know, if I wanted to go against the grain, Danielito Sorria won that fucking fight because he made his fight. That's how he chose to fight, and he executed his game plan. For example, if I was Danielito Sorria's coach and that was our game plan to stay away, circle out, have lateral movement, make it boring, and suck out the air out of Louisiana, right? Mission accomplished. But obviously we know the politics of the sport and we know what Rigas brings to the table, and that's knockouts. Sorria had to do much more, right? Like Rigas had to do much more. But now if Rigas is a great champion, see, great champions overcome to difficult situations, right? It's not about how you fall, it's about how you stand up, right? When you man up, you stand up. Enriquez now has footage, and now he has 48 minutes of experience with sharing the ring with a guy essentially that can mirror Devin Haney and Danielito Zorrilla. If Enriquez is smart, he would have paid Zorrilla to be his main sparring partner just for this fight. Enriquez could make adjustments, and Enriquez could definitely knock out Devin Haney. And in fact, one of the most interesting things in this press conference that I'm noticing that's going on is Enriquez continues to say, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to hurt you. I believe you, Enriquez. I believe you are going to catch and hurt Devin Haney. But are you going to put his lights out? Right? Because you also hurt Danielito Zorrilla. But you failed to do more. Same thing with Zorrilla. He hurt you. You fell down. But it's like you guys didn't do much more. I expect you to hurt Devin Haney and land that punch like Linares. But are you going to knock him out? Are you going to beat him? See, words are very important. Enriquez has continued to say, look, bro, I'm going to hurt you. All right, you're going to hurt Devin. I believe you. But does that mean you are going to win? Are you going to beat him? Are you going to knock him out and sleep him? That's one thing that he's not saying. See, Devin Haney's just talking the talk. He's saying, oh, I'm going to knock you out. And his father's saying that. But we don't really believe him. We just know that's talk because we expect Devin to circle out and box from the outside. You know, we don't really see a knockout coming. But I do believe when Enriquez says, I'm going to hurt you. But hurting Devin, we've seen Devin be hurt multiple times, right, in fights. Even Cambosis, I think in the second fight or the first fight, he also hurt Devin a little bit, right? But Devin has a good sense of recovery. He's smart in terms of like knowing what to do when shit ain't going his way. He showed it in the Lomachenko when he was getting rocked a little bit. Oh man, he's figuring me out. He's figuring me out. You saw a little distress. He was a little uncomfortable, right? But he still kind of buckled down and gave you a pretty good 12th round fight. Well, in the round 12, it was pretty good. Damn, where you at, Warp Speed? Look, man, going back to excuse me, going back to Amazon Prime and PBC, I don't like it, man. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? Do you guys like it? Do you like PBC getting Amazon Prime? Look, I've been very unimpressed with Amazon Prime Sports. Their movies and their shows, pretty fucking, it's quality, man. Their delivery service, fantastic. They're very customer friendly. The way that you can return packages without having to pay the repackaging or the fees, it's fantastic. Amazon's got that shit on lock. But when I talk about football, Thursday night football, man, it's horrible. Their games suck. Look, I think they made a deal with the NFL for 10 years and they paid over $1 billion. I'm upset with the quality of the games. Look, if I'm Amazon Prime, I don't know who their director is that oversees their sporting department, but I'm telling Roger Goodell, I want the game of the fucking week to be on Thursday. I don't give a fuck if you guys are changing the schedule and making the Monday night games on ESPN the best games. I want that game on Thursday. I want the Niners versus the Eagles on Thursday. I don't want that shit on CBS and Fox. I paid you a fucking $1 billion. That's the type of pressure that I'm putting on the NFL. I don't want to watch the shitty Patriots against the Pittsburgh Steelers. What the fuck is that? If I'm talking about Thursday night Prime, Amazon Prime, I need the best fucking football game. I'm tied back to boxing. They're going to give us shitty boxing content as well. It's going to be how PBC was very inactive. I will say this, though. I will say this. I could be wrong, right? And I hope I am. But just like if memory serves us right, this actually gave a couple of thumbs up for PBC because when they first started, they gave us some pretty good fucking fights. There was fights on True TV, Bounce TV, Fox Sports 1. They were allocated all over, right? Buying time. They gave us Keith Thurman versus Sean Porter for free. They gave us Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman for free. They gave us Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares for free. They gave us like Sammy Vasquez against Luis Collazo. I think that was on Bounce TV for free. They started off very good, right? And then they started to become very inactive. The fighters would maybe fight one time a year. I don't really know what was going on, right? But they had moments where they're giving us free quality shit. And you're like, man, people were still bitching and complaining at the time. But they were giving us quality fucking fights that we actually wanted to see. And then Keith Thurman held up the welterweight division. And then that's when Errol Spence started to fight on NBC and the prime time of the Olympics, and he knocked out Leonard Bundu. 7.5 million people watched that fight. They were doing great. And then somewhere for like the next 5 years, subtracting this year, they didn't give us what we wanted. Maybe the likes of Gary Russell, they were getting injured. Keith Thurman was finding love and playing the flute and all these situations that they really held the division back. Leo Santa Cruz got knocked out by Tank Davis and never gave us fights for 3-4 fucking years. Vince goes, I don't have Prime, so I don't watch Thursday Night Football. I'm not going to lie, Vince, that's a flex, bro, because I'm wasting time watching Thursday Night Football, bro. Like, you're actually saving yourself good time, bro, because I can't get that shit back. Those Thursday Night Football games have been garbage. Horrible, man. I think maybe last week was pretty good. But overall, they've been horrible, man. For like a lot of time, they were giving us the Denver Broncos when the Denver Broncos sucked in the beginning of the year. It was horrible, man. Horrible. Same thing with the Raiders. I was like, bro, I ain't trying to watch these crappy teams. So yeah, man, that's actually a flex. And you're not missing much. Their content pretty much sucks. And even though they have pretty good players covering, I think they have like Tony Gonzalez, Richard Sherman, Andrew Whitworth, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like, those guys have charisma, right? They can carry your attention. Al Bernstein and company, but their content sucks when it comes down to Thursday Night Football, man. Look, man, I'm not too sure if Speed or Drew are gonna hop on. I sent them the links, but look, man, just to kind of conclude it, I don't know if Andy Cruz is going to fight Hector Tanajara. I know it was originally scheduled, and then I heard a report that Hector Tanajara pulled out. But when I look on the DAZN, when they were talking about it today, they still had that fight as the third fight on the card. The co-main event was Leon Paro versus Montana Love, and then the third fight was Andy Cruz versus Hector Tanajara. So it might still be going on. I thought he had pulled out with an injury, but I guess not. I'm going to speak on Hector Tanajara for a bit. He really never lived up to his promise. Like, he looked promising at first. And then, right, he was a Golden Boy fighter. I don't know if he still is. But he is actually one of the worst fighters for Robert Garcia Boxing Academy, right? Because Robert has a great cast. He has like Virgil Ortiz at the time. He had Hector Tanajara. He had Bam Bam. He had Luis Delgado. I want to say even Neno Rodriguez before Floyd Mayweather bottom or Neno left RGBA. He had a great list of undefeated fighters. And Hector Tanajara, you would hear good things about him, like, oh, he's doing really good. He even sparred Ruben Villa. And they would spar one another when Ruben Villa went over to Riverside and started competing at that gym. Just traveling just to get better sparring. But then somewhere along the way, Hector Tanajara started to struggle. I don't know if he never really grew into his match strength or really packed a punch, but he lost a shit ton of momentum when he got beat badly against El Camarón Cepeda. And ever since then, Hector, you don't really hear about him anymore. I don't even know if he's training with RGBA and Robert Garcia over there. But yeah, man, so I'm hoping that if the fight does take place and he does fight this Saturday, I hope that he gives Andy Cruz a really good fight. Andy Cruz, for those that don't know, is an amazing Olympian boxer out of Cuba. I think he's a 2-time gold medalist, and he's known primarily for beating Keyshawn Davis, right? I think Keyshawn Davis ended up rocking silver for representing Team USA, and then Andy Cruz, got the gold. And he signed with Eddie Hearn at the age of 28. And his last fight, he fought like one of those fighters like Humberto Soto, like over 40 wins, 30 knockouts, and he looked pretty good. The only thing that he didn't really have was power, but he had the right punch placement. He had good endurance, the mental focus. He was sharp for 30 minutes. And he beat the Mexican. I think it was Humberto Soto, or unless it was like Pablo Cesar Cano. It was one of those guys, Anyway, Andy Cruz fighting Hector Tanajara. That's actually like a step down. Humberto Soto or Pablo Cesar Cano, they're better than Hector Tanajara. But I guess this is probably one where Andy Cruz could knock him out. I guess. I don't know. But I'm really interested to seeing that fight. Like I said, if Hector didn't pull out because he was injured or sick, that'll be the third fight on that card. And then I'm very interested in watching Leon Paro as well. I've never seen him. I think he trains under Freddie Roach at the Wild Card Gym, and he's going to be fighting Montana Love. I don't know if you guys remember Montana Love, but he was getting beat by this Australian named Steve Spark. And he was getting beat and he got dropped, and then he just flipped the dude out of the ring like some fucking Royal Rumble. And so hopefully Leon Paro knocks him out. But look, man, Subriel Matias, right? Just to tie it up. Subriel Matias is probably the freshest and probably the best 140-pound champion right now. I would favor him a little bit over Teofimo Lopez just because this guy looks very dangerous. And he doesn't really look to be extremely big or a weight bully at 140. He looks very lean, and he throws a lot of punches. A guy like Teofimo Lopez with power and speed and experience, he could definitely beat and knock out Subriel Matias because Matias gets hit, right? Jeremiah Ponce, the undefeated Argentinian at the time, he was landing a lot of punches on Matias, but Matias was tough. Same thing with Ergashev for the first 2 rounds. He was landing on Matias, and Matias is a come-forward fighter that plays to the strengths of Teofimo Lopez, right? So Teo could beat him, but I would still favor Subriel just a little bit just because there are certain nights that Teofimo Lopez shows up and he looks infallible, like he did against Lomachenko, like he did against Josh Taylor. And there are nights like Nakatani, Sander Martin, or George Kambosos where you don't know which Teofimo you're getting, a flawed one, a very emotional one, or a fucking dialed in and focused, undefeated, 2-time undisputed champion. I don't know. But Subriel Matias, on a consistent basis, has never really had an off night. And he's beating a lot of undefeated Eastern European fighters and knocking them all out. So I would favor Matias just a tiny bit. I don't really know who the WBC champion is. Oh, no, that's Rigas, sorry. So it's Rigas, WBC. IBF is Subriel Matias. WBO is Teofimo Lopez. And WBA, I think it's still it's not Jack Catterall. I don't know who the WBA champion is. Y'all know who the WBA champion is at 140? Oh, yeah, man. Fucking Rolly Romero, bro. Dude. That's crazy. I'm over here like trying to hype up the 140 division and then the fucking champion Rolly. Dude, what the fuck? Look, man. Rolly is the worst 140 champion out of all of them. I would go like this in terms of hierarchy, right? Starting with Rolly, he's the suckiest one. Then Rigas, then Teofimo, then Subriel Matias. That's how I would go. Matias being the best one. Or you can interchange him with Teo, and then I would put Rigas as the 3rd spot, and then Rolly Romero as the 4th. For those that don't know about that 40-year-old guy from Colombia, I think, right? Ismael Barroso. He's a pretty good fucking fighter. He's always been pretty good. I was watching a little bit of his fights besides the Rolly Romero fight. And honestly, man, he's been shafted. Rolly Polioli. Yeah, man. Fucking Rolly, man. Look, I'm not trying to be like a hater, bro. Like, I'm not. But I hate watching bad sports. I don't care if it's bad basketball, bad hockey, like my San Jose Sharks. I just hate watching professionals that are supposed to be the elites of the elites, and then they just suck. I just hate watching terrible boxing, uncoordinated boxing. It's just like when I watch something, right, even like a bad movie, I hate wasting time, right? I want to see amazing shit. I want to be able to watch something to be like, yeah, I can't make that. I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? But when I watch Rolly, I'm like, man, there's a million Rollies in the world. How's this dude a champion? Why does this dude deserve to represent the WBA? Like, how does he get in that position? Like, he's actually holding a legitimate belt. And when I compare him to fighters like Rodriguez and Lomachenko and Devin Haney and Subriel Matias, or even guys like Jeremiah Ponce or even Jorge Linares, I'm like, there's actually guys that actually have to do the right fucking thing against tough, undefeated fighters. And then here's Rolly fighting a 40-year-old for a fucking belt after getting knocked out by Tank Davis. Like, I don't understand it. Like, it's very strange to me, right? Where guys like David Benavidez has to fight tough boxers, right? Like slick boxers, very crafty guys, veterans like Andrade and Caleb Plant. And he still has to wait in line to get a hand on one belt, let alone Canelo. And there's guys like Rolly where it's just like, oh, I'm gonna just cut in line and fight 40-year-olds and fake injuries and still call myself a champion and possibly still land a Ryan Garcia big money fight. Like it doesn't really make sense to me. It doesn't compute. It's strange, man. But anyway, man, Subriel Matias, going back to him. There's another fighter by the name of Richardson Hitchens. He just recently beat Jose Chon Zepeda, right? Like about a month or two ago. And Richardson Hitchens on Boxing Scene, right? In one of them articles, he said, in short, he's never going to fight Subriel Matias. And the reason I say he's never going to fight him because he said, I will never fight Subriel Matias under the IBF sanctioning rules. I don't like the 10-pound rehydration or the second weigh-in that I have to do. He said, in order for me to fight Matias, which would be a very tough fight, at least he acknowledges Matias has some skill. I want to be at my best. So I'm not going to fight Matias under the IBF rules. That's telling. He's letting us know two things. One is that he needs to rehydrate and not really be a 140-pounder. He needs to be like over 160 pounds in order to beat Matias. That's one, right? He needs to be a weight bully, so to speak. And then two, he doesn't want to fight him ever then. Because why would Matias, a champion, want to chase a contender? Let alone one that doesn't want to fight for his belt on the line. So in other words, Matias has bigger fish to fry since you don't want to fight him under the only probably legitimate belt in the sport of boxing, right? Because we know the WBO is crook. They're crooks, kind of like the WBC, let alone the WBA, right? The IBF at least adheres to its bylaws. They actually enforce their mandatories. And I like, even though they might not necessarily drug test fighters, at least they still put a second weigh-in and a 10-pound like weigh-in limit. I like that. Like that's actually that's fucking fair, right? And they're very consistent. Anyway, so that to me is putting Subriel Matias on that pedestal that he is the best at 140 because guys like Richardson Hitchens don't want to fight him under IBF rules. And that lets me know that even though Teofimo says that would be easy work, that lets me know that Subriel is doing the proper things right. Like he's conducting himself like a champion. I don't know who Matias will fight next. I doubt if Devin Haney is victorious against Rodriguez, I doubt they're going to unify. Maybe Teofimo Lopez takes that fight. I can see it happening. But I think Matias is with PBC still. And he's going to be fighting on Amazon Prime. And at least from Instagram, Teofimo Lopez is still taking pictures with Bob Arum trying to figure out his contract. So there may be, changing up the situations and the terms. So they're probably operating on good faith. So I doubt they're going to cross over. And I'm sure that Jeff Bezos and company are not going to want to let PBC roster fighters, hop on other networks, kind of like the Zone does, right? So I don't know, man. The future for Matias is just going to be fighting his mandatories. If guys like Hitchinson don't want to fight him, I don't really know who's going to step in line to fight or unify with Subriel Matias. I just don't see nobody doing that. He's a dark horse of the division. He doesn't have that big of a following. But if you watch his fights, he's David Benavidez at 140. What David Benavidez, the Mexican monster, is at 168, that's Subriel Matias. They literally fight the same with a high guard. They always press forward with the action, throw a ton of punches, and they have an amazing motor. They don't fucking get tired. Matias is that dude. Oh, yo, Speed, you are in, bro. My bad. I don't know how long you've been waiting there, man. Real quick, mic check.
Homie Ricky, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I've been in the background long enough to go to the store, get a 5-gallon tank of water filled up. I was able to drive back from the store. I was able to boil some water, make me some nice warm chamomile tea for my throat.
Nice.
I was able to read a chapter of a book, and somehow I was still lingering in your background, hearing you talk all things Matthias.
Damn.
Yeah, so that's how long I was there, homie Ricky. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. So I got a question. Why do you have Mark Magsayo today as your profile picture?
Well, Mark Masayo, what promotion he fights for, right?
Yeah, Manny Pacquiao Promotions.
Well, yeah, okay, maybe, but the bigger promotion than that. Who's the one who broadcasts his fights? Who's the one who puts him up and showcases him in Showtime, or used to?
Yeah. PBC.
Yeah, and of course, you do know the news du jour, the big news of the day, which is PBC has signed some kind of broadcasting deal with Amazon Prime. You know this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, the reason why Mark Masayo, the Filipino who fights under the Manny Pacquiao stable of fighters, a very good fighter indeed. In fact, although he is a very good and exciting, powerful fighter, he is the one of the purveyors of one of the most boring fights in all of boxing history. When Mark Masayo fought Guillermo Rigondeaux, the Jackal, it was a everybody wants to say that it's what they call the sweet science, right? Hit, not get hit, or whatever. But if these fighters are standing 6 feet away from each other, circling around on each other, not throwing punches, and the few punches that they throw, they're 3 feet away from each other. This is Mark Masayo. Now, we know that Mark Masayo, like most Filipino fighters,
whoa. Time out. He never fought Guillermo Rigondeaux, bro.
What are you talking about?
I think you're confusing El Pinoy. That's Casimero, bro.
Oh, the Casimero. Oh man, now I sound like a racist. Like I don't know how to distinguish my Asian fighters now. Man, I'm so sorry. That's so embarrassing. No, you're right. I was thinking Casimero, but I don't like Casimero. You see, I don't like Casimero, so it should have been natural for me to have said that. But I was like, no, I can't. It can't be Casimero because I don't watch Casimero fights because he is a very despicable individual, right? He's man, are you gonna defend this guy or am I gonna be allowed to talk smack about the guy?
No, how is Casimero despicable? Like I don't really know about this guy. Like
whoa. Let's not make it about that because I don't like to talk about bad about fighters, right? Let me explain why Mark Masayo is the icon for the night. So you know that Mark Masayo, most of his fights come out on Showtime for the PBC. Whenever they used to have those boxing nights for that television broadcaster. Well, of course, PBC has somehow inked some kind of a deal with Amazon Prime, and they're going to be showcasing at least next year 12 boxing nights. Um, Even though the PBC apparently has a stable of fighters and around 150 fighters. Not too sure if that means that they're going to be recycling each fighter or only making in-house fights or otherwise, but I still don't think that 12 fights will be enough to keep every one of those 150 fighters occupied. So I started to do a little bit of research, and it turns out that Mark Masayo is having a fight this Saturday. Okay,
Oh wow.
we know that there's fights on Top Rank. Do you think Mark Masayo is going to fight on the Top Rank uh, card this weekend? The answer to that is no. So we have Devin Haney and Regis Progra in a stacked card fighting this Saturday also on the zone, and that is a matchroom event. Do you think Mark Masayo inked a deal with Eddie Hearn to fight on the undercard or on the before the bell showcase of fighters? The answer to that again, the homie Ricky, is no. But for about it's 3 months now, right? We've been hosting these live events, these lives, so that we can discuss all things boxing. And there's been one promotion that I've been hailing as a very successful promotion that went defunct after nearly 30 years of being extant, and that was, of course, Kenny Thompson's Thompson Boxing Promotions, a Southern California outfit that just went defunct earlier this year, around February. And their very last event was in June. They ended up selling the stable of fighters and most of their equipment and their branding to another outfit, a newcomer, a Johnny Come Lately called CBN, the CBN Network. Now, Thompson Boxing has made fighters such as uh, Timothy Bradley. Um, they've also Josecito Lopez, Mauricio Herrera, uh, and Salinas' own Ruben Villa the fourth, Drac. Okay, they are responsible for developing these fighters, getting them the opportunities to shine, and then all of a sudden the bigger promotions, Top Rank, Golden Boy, Whoop De Whoop come in, snag them, make them superstars. Now, CBN Network, who ended up buying all of Thompson Promotions stable, usually have one event a month. And for the longest time, since they've been around for nearly 3 months now, since we started doing these lives, I've been trying to promote their events because they used to be for free on their application, which is the Thompson app, which I still have, and I don't know what for because it's no longer around, and also on their YouTube channel. And they used to put very good competitive fights, very much a la the um, Pro Box TV. In fact, I would say they were the original Pro Box TV before Pro Box TV was around. Now, I know you're a big proponent of Pro Box TV. You like the
Man,
formula.
get to the point, bro. What's going on here?
So
Why?
CBN is hosting Boxing Night this Saturday.
Okay.
It is it is a boxing event that will not be promoted on the Thompson Boxing YouTube channel because that's no longer around. It's CBN, but CBN has never allowed their fights to be broadcast on YouTube, nor do they have an app. You actually have to go to some kind of website called like Fight 24 something whoop de whoop / whatever, or you can just visit CBN and then you click on the link, and then on the day of the fight, you can watch the fights, right? And their fights are held down in Southern California at something called Forever Imagining Studios or whatever. And I did a little bit of research, the homie Ricky, and I am here to report that ex-champ Mark Masayo returns on Saturday. El Mark Magnifico Masayo, 24 and 2, 16 by knockout, returns to the ring Saturday against Isaac Avelar, 17-6, 10 KOs, which Isaac Avelar used to be a Thompson fighter, and an 8-rounder at Infinite Reality Studios in Long Beach, California, formerly known as Thunder Studios, formerly the venue where Kenny Thompson used to promote his fights before he passed away in February of this year. Mark Messiah was now fighting at junior lightweight. Homie Ricky, the PBC inked the deal with the Amazon Prime to showcase in 12 fights 150 of their fighters. And that's just impossible, right? There's you can't have 20 fights, 30 fights in one event and keep all your guys busy. So they're letting people go. And it seems, at least now I can confirm it, that Mark Masayo was released by the PBC, and likely they're going to start shedding a lot of fighters that will not have boxing nights according to this very stripped down, very limited one event a month contract with Amazon Prime. Ladies and gentlemen, how low the mighty have fallen. Mark Masayo, formerly a champion, who used to even headline or at least play co-main on PBC fight events and on the Showtime network, is now fighting on a website on the as the B side to a fighter from Southern California that you've likely never have heard of. Just wanted to report that that is the reason why Mark Magsayo is the icon for my venue today, homie Ricky. And I'm trying to dig a little more on what other PBC fighters are now going to be former PBC fighters looking for a way to fight for top rank, Matchroom, uh, Queensbury, and maybe even the lower ranking promotions such as CBN, Pro Box TV, and so forth and so on. Whether you think this is a good thing for the sport of boxing or not, the homie Ricky, I just wanted to report that this is where a lot of these fighters are gonna be pretty soon.
Look, man, that's actually a big revelation, man. You said so it sounds like it's just a trial basis with PBC and Amazon. Amazon is only giving them basically 12 TV slots throughout the year, which is
Mhm,
basically one fight a month.
mhm,
And I wonder if they're all going to be pay-per-view events. Because look, man, I like Mark Magsayo. I like the fight that he had with Julio Ceja. I like the fight that he had with Brandon Figueroa. I didn't really like the fight that he had with Ray Vargas, but Mark Magsayo is very like I like to watch his career, right? He's obviously one of Manny Pacquiao's probably his best fighter in his promotional company alongside Pitbull Cruz. And I no lie, man, I don't want to watch him on a CBN app or a CBN.com website or a Fight 24/7/forward. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't trying to watch him that. I want to watch him in one of like he deserves ESPN. He deserves a DAZN undercard slot. You know what I mean? No disrespect to up and coming broadcasters, right? But he deserves better. So there's going to be a lot of fighters. Yeah, man, that's wild, right? That's like it's a flooding gate. Like that's crazy, bro. Wow. Because I'm not going to watch Mark Maxio this Saturday. In other words, I'm going to tune into the ESPN one, Richard Torres and Shushu Carrington and Delonte Tiger Johnson and those fighters. And then there's a Devin Haney fights. Mark Maxio is the odd man out. So out of the 150 personnel of fighters that PBC has, there's probably going to be essentially nights like this where the other rest of the 100 fighters that they have are not going to get prime time Amazon Prime slot. Yeah, it's crazy, bro. That's really crazy. Again, that just leads for a lot of opportunity. Or if we just interpret the lines, There's gonna be a lot of starving bellies in the sport of boxing.
A lot of starving bellies, homie Ricky. And you got to understand one thing, right? Um, when Kenny Thompson was still around and hosting these events, his his fight nights were acts of love and faith. It was a well-known thing that Kenny Thompson was not making money off of these events. He was just a fan of the sport, and he loved his fighters. That's it. He loved his community, and one of the ways he wanted to promote goodness in his community is by getting some of the local fighters that were really taking themselves seriously, giving them a venue in order for them to shine and open up doors for their career. He loved
Yeah,
to watch his fighters develop and do something while they stayed out of the streets, and he would entertain the local people. These places, homie Ricky, were little saloons and halls that were always very lively. They always got packed because they were small and they were smoky. Somebody might be walking in the hallway smoking or something. You might see another couple of guys drinking a couple of beers next to the bathroom.
yeah, yeah. No,
But there
absolutely.
was no money there, homie Ricky. In fact, he was probably shedding money paying these lower ranked fighters. Now, Mark Masayo, whatever you want to say about the man, and that'll likely go for any of the other fighters. And you can start going through the roster, homie Ricky. We can probably have a very interesting live if we just go through the PBC website, go through the roster, and start scratching off names of who you imagine is likely going to be weaned out of that promotion. Because believe it or not, homie Ricky, there was a time when all of these fighters were properties of Oscar de la Hoya. And when they were in Oscar de la Hoya, I don't know if you remember this, but 2012, 2011, 2013 in particular were incredible boxing years. Oscar de la Hoya used to make their fighters fight the best. And because they have legendary, you know, uh, legendary and incredibly skillful matchmakers, Robert Diaz and all them cats right there that I believe and I've heard that have moved on and are now working for Matchroom and for Marv Nation. But nonetheless, these guys used to draw eyes and have people speak about them. Now, do you think Mark Magsayo is going to be making what he used to before when he was in a big network like Showtime, working for a big promotion like PBC, now fighting at a smoky little hall? I don't think so, homie Ricky. Especially when this promoter is keeping himself mum and obscure, having to link up through a website in order to see their fights, right? Now, I would like to plug in the link later on so that anybody who would like to see this fight can see these fighters because these are local guys. These are guys here in Southern California, Northern California that won't get the easy kind of shots like Robesi Ramirez or Richard Torres taking on the punching bags like Mr. Vince Vargas just mentioned the last 2 days ago in the live. No, these are going to be hard fought scraps, right? And they deserve our attention. Now, not a lot of people can afford Disney bundle of Disney, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, right? Not everybody can afford the $25 that it costs for you to watch fights on the zone. And furthermore, they won't have the extra $60 to pay for the pay-per-view fight between Devin Haney and Regis Prograis. So I think the right thing to do would be to at least plug CBN's free fights on their website before the show ends. But Mark Magsayo is going to be fighting Abel Avelar, and I assure you that Abel Avelar is a very scrappy, durable fighter. I've seen him fighting for Kenny Thompson. Now, I just I lament the homie Ricky reporting that because these guys were on the top of the world and how low they've fallen. We no longer have to watch these fighters behind a paywall, which is a blessing for us the boxing fans that are going through a hard financial straits, but it is pitiful and almost sad for these kind of fighters to have gone from up here all the way down here. Homie Ricky, you talked about
But
Matthias, right?
just to elaborate on that point, we can basically say that Al Heyman has failed to do what he was seeking to do, right? Because he failed to popularize the sport of boxing on local channels.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that was one of the ideas. He was trying to get a long-term deal, and he couldn't do that with any of those. True TV, Bounce TV, right? TBS, Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports, NBC, ABC, even
Hmm.
Showtime. Al
Fox.
Heyman has failed. And one of the reasons that they have failed is because they don't have a great promoter. You see, Oscar De La Hoya alongside Richard Schaefer, they used to have all that roster, and they kept every single one of those fighters active. Keith Thurman was active. Deontay Wilder was active, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, man, they failed. I will say this, another thing, going back to Thompson boxing.
Mhm.
Thompson, he knew and could spot talent. He had
Yes.
fighters like Vanes Martirosyan,
Yes.
Ruben Villa, Demetrius Andre.
Hmm.
Those were the more notable names that they actually got out of the Olympian fighters. Because typically, big names they went with Top Rank and Golden Boy, but they knew that they could still find, a diamond in the rough, you know, in guys like Demetrius Andrade and Ruben Villa. Now they
And
might not
also,
be
and
some
also Floyd Schofield. They had him too. And look where he's now.
absolutely. So
He's a
they
world
could,
killer for Golden Boy.
yeah, absolutely. Thompson, they knew how to spot talent. They just
Hmm.
couldn't, compete with the higher ups. Kind of like the Oakland Athletics. That was Thompson boxing. They didn't have the budget, or didn't want to spend as much as these big time promotional companies, but they kept it local. And I went to a few of those events. I did go to a Thompson fight with Ruben Villa, and I did get to see Paulie Malignaggi, got to see Paul Mendes, El Gallo Negro. Maybe even Eloy Perez was with them at one point as well. But look, man, that's pretty shocking what you're saying with PBC. Going back to the starving bellies, a lot of those fighters are gonna have to find a new home, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing, because there's always room for growth and opportunity. Maybe promoters like Mikey Garcia with their what was the event that they were going to host in Fresno? Do you remember the name, like the House of
Yeah,
Champions?
House of Champions 4.
Yeah, maybe little pop-up venues, or maybe Marv Nation and company they can take over. But man, look, there's a lot of room for opportunity. You're just going to have to start out small. You're going to
Yeah.
have to build your own UFC, and it's possible. But we'll see if yeah, man, we'll see if these boxers can do so, man, and these managers and these company men and the suits, because Showtime leaving the sport of boxing after HBO. I mean, who's next?
Well,
Who's next?
it gets a little worse, homie Ricky. It's like sometimes
Could be the zone.
yeah, sometimes I go hiking or mountain biking, right? And when there's a dead animal because you start watching the California condors, or maybe they're just straight vultures just circling around, waiting for whatever it is that is injured or on his death throes to finally expire. I see it all the time, right? Um, and it's almost like these rival promoters for the PBC are circling around like vultures. Some in order to pick up some of these fighters, and good for them, because the PBC, for whatever you want to think about them, at the end of their days, they became they became a bad thing for the sport. I don't think there's much question about it. I think their track record speaks for themselves. I believe initially it started off as a very positive adventure, a man in a dream trying to expand the sport that he really loved. But then once you dig a little deeper into the man who had that dream, Mr. Al Heyman, you read some early reports that states that he had a love-hate relationship, uh, more heavy on the hate for boxing, because he apparently used to have a brother who was a boxer who suffered some kind of hardships, maybe some devastation in the ring, maybe some abusive judging contrary against him, and from there he took on this sport personally, and he wanted to radicalize it. Now, you and I have talked about becoming promoters, right, homie Ricky? You always say, "Man, we got to get a promoter's license. This it costs a lot of things." Blah, 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 blah. You said that, right?
Yeah,
And
hell yeah, man.
and why do you say that, homie Ricky? Can you tell people why you want to be a promoter? Can you just keep it simple and say, is it because you love the sport or because you hate the sport?
It's because I fucking love the sport, bro. The fucking sport is easy to promote. Look, man, listen. The sport of boxing is the greatest sport in the fucking world, bro. Right? It's the greatest sport in the world. It's the simplest sport in the world,
Mhm.
right? And it's a sport that is filled with a ton of opportunities. Much like sacrifice as well. You got to sacrifice a shit ton, right? But it's the easiest sport to promote because anybody can do it. You can do it. Out of all the sports, you don't need to be the most athletic, the tallest, the strongest puncher, have the greatest chin. You don't. All you need is a little bit of motivation and you need a little bit of pain, a little bit of pain tolerance, and a little bit of, ability to inflict pain on others. And you can make $1 out of the sport of boxing. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to be a millionaire, right? Or make boxing, like your true living. But it's the easiest sport to promote, man. And one of the things that I love about the sport of boxing is that it still kind of clings on to the past, where you don't need to go to college for it. You don't need, credentials. You don't need an amateur record. These things help, right?
Mhm.
But you can create your own punching bag out of sand, right? You can make your own leather canvas and just go to town on it. Boom, boom, boom. Just throw punches and haymakers. Then you can just pay, I don't know, $20 and register your name and then go and fight. It's as simple as that. You might make $200, but it's as simple as that. It's an open gym. That's one thing that I love about boxing is that it's literally a Cinderella story. One of the greatest boxing films, and there's a lot of great boxing films, but it's Cinderella Man. And for those that haven't seen the movie, I won't spill, too much, but this guy is a boxer, stops boxing, and I think he injures his hands. And then he starts like during like the Great Depressions and so he starts working the docks and he starts like picking up like big old bags of like potatoes and stuff and he starts getting bigger and stronger and he goes back to boxing or something amongst these lines and he starts rocking foods, starts knocking them all out. Literally that can happen. It's like laying brick. There's so many guys like Andrew Cancio, right? He was with Golden Boy. He's a construction worker and he started boxing. Look at the stories of, your average Joe Smith, also laid brick. Look at Orlando Salido, and you can still run boxing on the side. That right there is a common man story. It's fucking dope. If you gave that plot to the Coen brothers, the guys who made the stories such as The Great Lebowski and you know Inside Llewyn Davis and No Country for Old Men and those fantastic fucking films, Oh Brother Where Art Thou? That's all they fucking do is tell those fucking stories. But
Mhm.
yet somehow guys like Al Heyman, PBC, fucking even Showtime and Steven Espinoza, they can fuck up a simple story. They can fuck it up. These promoters and even guys like Oscar the Lawyer, they're fucking up, man. They don't know how to sell a fighter. And it's the simplest sport to promote, right? All of
Yeah.
these guys hate the sport of boxing. Bob Arum hates the sport of boxing. Golden Boy, these guys hate the sport of boxing because they no longer respect it. They know they fell out of love with it. And that's why I wanted to get my promoter's license because I was like, bro, these guys suck, man. These guys
So
suck.
I won't profess to know what
I
run.
digress.
Yeah, I won't profess to know what goes through their mind. I don't necessarily think that they hate the sport of boxing.
They do,
Uh,
man,
no,
because you're
I
hurting
don't.
it. Why would you hate? Why would you? If you love something, you won't hurt it, man.
Um,
Who would hurt it?
no, and that's the thing. I don't think they think they're hurting it.
Unless you're a
They're
sadist.
just. I don't think they think they're hurting it. This ain't like Don King, right? Don King, he's hurt the sport. He's made some of the greatest fights of all time, developed some of the greatest fighters of all time, but overall, he became a different person as a result of that. And then he ended up abusing the sport to the point of just using it as a tool to come up while bringing everybody down. I mean, he still just the most recently, I think 2 years ago, he ended up contracting Daniel Dubois, a fighter from Queensbury. He contracted him for one fight. He ended up winning some kind of a purse bid, held the fight night in Florida. You know that state is not known for boxing connoisseurs nor fanaticism. And they had this fight, and he didn't pay Daniel Dubois, took him to court, and he hasn't claimed the money. And I think he dropped the charges, and he ain't gonna get a dime from that fight. Um, and then there's men like Golden Boy and Top Rank who play by the old boy style of promotion. Now, being insiders like Oscar allows them to hold on to some kind of an impression of what the sport should be promoted like as an ex fighter, but also as a manager of fighters or a promoter of fighters with money to disperse and manage, right? So it just depends on how you look at it. There's people that are detached from the sport, like Mr. Bob Arum, who just sees it as a boxing venue, as a business entity, but at the same time he knows enough about how you make stars and how you make good fight nights so that he doesn't necessarily have to scam you. And then there's people that go a bit wayward with a little bit of power, and after they become more promoter than they are boxers, formerly, like Oscar de la Hoya. But I would never profess and say that they hate the sport and that they're
They,
intentionally
they,
hurting it.
they hate
I
the
just,
sport.
I just,
I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you, it's pretty simple, man. Why would they want to sell their companies then? Because they're tired. You said an amazing word. They're detached from it. They're detached from it. Bob Arum, he is one of the pioneers of the modern day sport of boxing. He's built so many stars, right? Golden Boy shoots himself every single day. It seems like on the foot, right? And he's talked about selling his company. And these are the guys that have the most influence in the sport of boxing. That not if they work together, you don't have to work with anybody to be successful like they have, right? They can keep branching off and doing things solo, but there's no innovation. And we talk about taking the sports to new heights, having a vision or a direction where the sport of boxing should be. It starts with the sanctioning bodies. None of those
yeah.
should be real belts. Not the
Well, let's,
IBF, not the
homie
W.
Ricky, again, before we try to profess that we know what goes on in the minds of these men, to wholly, wholly, and comprehensively say that they hate the sport. Let's just move on to other things because I don't think neither you or I really know the answer to that. But let's just go back to what I was saying. The vultures are circling on those that are about to die. Now, you were talking about some of these upcoming fights and who's been calling out Subriel Matias and so forth and so on. I heard you talking about it. But one of the examples, right, that the vultures are circling on the PBC and the PBC fighters is the following report by and the boxing scene article, if I'm not mistaken, dated for today's date, the 7th of December, current year 2023, the year of our Lord. And the 342 post meridium, Mr. Hans Themistode writes an article stating Frank Martin has to fight Stevenson if he wants Cepeda. Says, who do you think said that, homie Ricky?
Oscar de la Hoya, man.
Oscar de la Hoya.
Let me stop you right
Oh,
there. That is the
what?
reason. This is what I'm talking about. See, one of the things look, bro.
Wait. Before you hop on, because I know you've probably either read the report or you already formulated your ideas. I just want to enlighten our listeners. It's a very short read. I will gloss right through it. And then let them understand what it is that you and I are talking about, and then of course you chime in. But Frank Martin has to fight Stevenson if he wants Cepeda, says Oscar de la Hoya. Frank Martin is hoping that the skimpy schedule he had in 2023 was simply an outlier. That the 28-year-old can be spotted in the ring on multiple occasions before. This year he barely got an opportunity. Martin almost failed to make the most of it when he walked in and he went life and death with Harutusian, a fighter that he ended up eventually looking very bad against this Orthodox fighter who fought very adeptly against the southpaw Frank Martin. But then all of a sudden, Frank Martin put his dukes ups, and on the 11th or 12th, I think, is when he ended up stopping the guy. Nonetheless, he goes on to state that the Detroit native wanted to jump back into the fire and participate in a big fight. Just a few months later, he got what he was looking for when Shakur Steven, who was desperate in need of an opponent, reached an agreement with Martin for the vacant WBC title fight. Recall the WBC title was the very first one that young Devin Haney relinquished in order to move up to 140 to fight the WBC fighter champion at the next weight class, which is Regis Prograis, which does take place this weekend. It goes on and states, yet behind the scenes, Martin was surly by the negotiations. In short, the highly ranked contender wanted a bit more financially to face the now 3 division champion. And remember, homie Ricky, he ended up walking away from the Shakur Stevens fight after they had already apparently agreed on the deal. And then, of course, Shakur Stevens went on to fight Edwin de los Santos in one of the most boring fights in recent years. Okay, now Frank Martin has been calling out William Cepeda, the Mexican native, who's run through his competition. And he has 2 recent violent stoppages of Jaime Arboleda and Mercito Gesta, the Pinoy fighter who used to fight for Manny Pacquiao Promotions. But this is what Oscar de la Hoya responds. When Martin says, I really want Cepeda, I'm going to have a sit down with my team. I'm going to see if they can push me for that. Oscar de la Hoya's response. He says, fight Stevenson, says De La Hoya on his social media account. And now think about it. Homie Ricky, Oscar De La Hoya knows that the PBC is in desperate situation. He knows that their fighters are in a desperate situation. He knows that Frank Martin wants to fight William Cepeda. He knows that would be a great, exciting fight. He knows everybody would want to watch that fight. What does he care if if Frank Martin walked away from a Shakur Stevens fight, what does he care
That's what
about
I'm saying,
making?
bro.
Why does he care that he walked away from that? And why is he telling him, go fight the guy that you ducked? When at the end of the day, guess what, homie Ricky? William Cepeda ducked Shakur Stevens also. Why doesn't he just agree that both of them ducked Shakur Stevens? And why doesn't he just make both of those guys fight each other?
Excellent points. Excellent points. Because what I said about 10 minutes ago, these guys hate the sport of boxing, bro. Listen to me. Everybody in the sport of boxing, and this is the biggest problem with boxing, is everybody is out to get theirs, right? They're only out to get theirs, which is very cynical and a dog eat dog world, right? So there's not really a proper brand. When you think about boxing, right? And when people think about boxing, they only think about a certain group of fighters. They only think about their favorite fighters. They don't care about the zone. They really don't care about PBC. And they really don't care about Top Rank. They only care about fighters
Mhm.
rather than the brand, right? Oscar De La Hoya only cares about his own people. And that's fine. But this is why I try to tell you is that they hate the sport of boxing because they're not taking care of the sport of boxing. You see, when I talked about these people having an influence in the sport of boxing, they're the ones that change the perspective and the perception of the sport. They're the ones that can make the sport great, right? The people at the top. That starts with Oscar De La Hoya. He has a responsibility, obviously not just to his fighters and to his companies and to his shareholders and to himself, but he owes a responsibility to the whole sport in which he won gold medal and made a promise to his mom, in which he fought guys like Shane Mosley and bought them fighters to, you know, to become CEOs like Bernard Hopkins and company, right? Oscar's doing right in that nature, but in the grand scheme of things, he's making other people starve. For instance, William Zepeda and Frank Martin, they're not going to ever be pay-per-view stars, but they could make really good money fighting one another. But yet again, going back to him thinking that his group of fighters are superior to Frank Martin and PBCs, oh, you got to go fight Shakur Stevenson. It's kind of like this point. Let's say I want to buy a 2022 Corvette, those really nice ones, right? That are like over $100,000. The simple way out and the lazy way out is basically saying, oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. So then I stop to think about ways immediately. I stop. Like I don't even ponder how I would go about getting that money to purchase a car that I really want. Right. Whereas if I start changing my tone, like, oh, how do I get that? What do I need to do to get that car? Then I start thinking, oh, well, maybe I can start a cookie business. I can start slinging dope or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? I start thinking with my head. Oscar right now just shut that fight down. He's no longer going to give it a second thought. Cepeda and Frank Martin is not going to happen. Why? Oh, because he wants Frank Martin to go fight Shakur Stevenson. Why? Boxing needs Frank Martin versus William Zepeda, like they need Pitbull Cruz versus Mark Magsayo or whatever. They just need to be active. These fighters and these promoters are hurting the sport of boxing, bro. When Keyshawn Davis or you have a kid like Floyd Schofield calling out Keyshawn Davis, and Keyshawn Davis postpones the fights or whatever the nature may be. It's like, bro, fight each other as prospects, then fight each other as champions, and then fight yourselves and build these rivalry good later down the road. Don't just fight one time. And that's what's the killing the sport of boxing is this sense of I'm superior than you. It's the sense that I can't take a loss. And all of these things that look, you're only as good as your last fight, right? So for instance, Ryan Garcia lost a lot of momentum when he got beat by Tank Davis, right? That's what happens when people take losses. But you know what people forget? If you fight again. Now, for instance, Mikey Garcia got beat by Sander Martin, right? People assumed after Errol Spence that Mikey Garcia didn't even have an in-between fight and beat Jesse Vargas. They just looked, oh man, he got beat so bad by Errol Spence. It wasn't even competitive. They forgot that he fought and was coming off a victory over Jesse Vargas on the zone. And then they just know that Sander Martin retired him, essentially, right? Had Mikey Garcia fought 5 times after, people don't even remember the Sander Martin loss. But because that's his last fight, he sat on it for the rest of his life as a loser. Right? It happens many times. Basically, what I'm saying is these fighters have to be active, bro. These promoters are killing the sport of boxing. They're
Yeah,
killing
the homie Ricky. All of that is true, but you got to understand one thing. You have to really think about this, right? You have to really think about this and say, why does Golden Boy concern himself on the negotiations, the failed negotiations that took place between Frank Martin's team and Shakur Stevens' team? If for one, none of those two fighters, when they were negotiating, are are fighters for Golden Boy, and secondly, neither were the promotions involved. They weren't Golden Boy. It was Top Rank and PBC. So why is he such a detached and uninvolved party? So why does he feel so entitled to rub it in the face of a fighter that has nothing to do with him on this almost act of Schadenfreude, this comeuppance that doesn't even pertain to him, and he wants to say you have Shakur Stevens problems because you negotiated and you walked away from that fight. And you have to think about it. You have to put on your thinking cap, homie Ricky. Right? Why does Oscar De La Hoya care? Because right there, that's the fight. I want to watch that fight. I don't know who wins that fight, but I want to watch that fight. That's an even fight. How do we know it's an even fight? Because these guys are knocking on the door of championship.
It's a good ass fight, man.
It's a good ass fight because they've been knocking in the door of good ass championships. They're on the fringes. Exactly, both of them. They're on the fringes. They're probably the next guys up. And these guys are both undefeated. This is an ideal fight. You sell this as a main event or a main event, maybe not necessarily a pay-per-view, but you're going to make a fight night out of this. There's going to be a lot of eyes on this fight. And why would he turn down the opportunity? And you really have to think deep about it, homie Ricky. Why does Oscar De La Hoya care? And you have to think of it like this. Oscar De La Hoya, a couple of months ago, started to say that he was done with the division. And he made it personal about Al Heyman. He said, no more keeping fights in house. No more protecting our fighters. I'm going to be crossing the street. I'm going to be working with Mr. Al Heyman. I'm going to be working with Mr. Eddie Hearn. And he took a very famous photo with his former promoter, Mr. Bob Arum, shaking hands and hugging. And then one guy traded a fighter for the other guy, and so forth and so on. And then we saw Alexis Rocha get destroyed by a top ranked fighter, and a former sparring partner, and Giovanni Santillan. Okay, you have to understand this, homie Ricky. Although Oscar De La Hoya has nothing to do with these failed negotiations, he made a deal with Mr. Bob Arum. And Mr. Bob Arum, as a token of good gesture and faith, he's saying, you know what, Mr. Bob Arum, this guy did you guys wrong. He gave you guys hope. He gave you guys a little, you know, a little stiffy, and then he walked away from the action. I will allow you, Mr. Bob Arum, to get this fighter first before we do. And this is what I'm trying to say, homie Ricky. This is one of those indications that the vultures are circling around a soon to be carcass. They are fighting against the PBC and Mr. Al Heyman to make sure that the PBC fighters find themselves in such difficult circumstances that they will do anything and all to make any fight happen, as long as they can feed themselves and put some food on the table. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense for why a guy who's asking to fight your fighter, who's prime, and who your fighter is prime, that you would give up that opportunity to fight him. Who cares if he walked away from a Shakur Stevens fight? So I just wanted to throw that in there, homie Ricky, because it looks real bad for the PBC fighters going forward.
Yeah, no, I see where you're going with this. I see you. I understand. I'm gonna say it like this, man. Oscar has an opportunity,
Hmm.
right? Like he's had many opportunities in the past, but he has an
Hmm.
opportunity to make a fight with Frank Martin and maybe sign Errol Spence and maybe sign Frank Martin. He also
Hmm.
has an opportunity to pick up. We talking about the vultures and fighters that he can pick up. He can also pick up guys like Teofimo Lopez. He can pick up guys like the guys that are bickering with other contracts. He might lose Ryan, but in return, he might earn other ones. But the fact that he doesn't want to make a fight between Frank Martin, he don't open a line of conversation and dialogue with these other companies, right?
Hmm.
And I doubt he's going to do so after Leonard Ellerby and company. They say, "Man, you've been sleeping behind the fucking wheel. That's why we took half your fucking fighters." Man, I don't know about you, but if someone told me those words, I'm not just gonna sit there in the press conference. I'm gonna be like, "Man, Leonard, who the fuck are you? You don't speak
Of
for fucking
course.
Al Heyman. What fucking fighter have you killed, motherfucker? If I'm Oscar, I'm not just sitting there and be like, what? I'm
Hmm.
gonna voice my opinion.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So if I can't beat them in conversation, I'm snatching the fighters. Hey, bro, you gotta have to hold it down, man. I gotta wrap it up real quick right here.
Okay. So I hope that I hope what I'm expressing to my our beloved listeners of the Homie Ricky podcast is making sense. First off, I just want to say I wish a good night to Mr. Sports Archives. Yeah, we've been streaming late as of late. No pun intended, Mr. Sports Archive. Um, hey, the homie Ricky can only hop on whenever he can hop on, and I can only hop on whenever he hops on. And sometimes that'll be early. I prefer to go early because I can go on for days and days. The earlier, the better, though, because I can fall asleep. But nonetheless, well, and of course, Mr. Vince Vargas, uh, Loma. Yes, Mr. Vince Vargas, that is my favorite fighter, Lomachenko. And I'm not too sure if that's one of the Vargas dynasty older brothers or if that is you, Mr. Vargas. But that's a very interesting picture, and that seems like a very cool cat right there, like a very cool and collected cat. I hope all of you guys have been enjoying yourselves. Uh, Listening to us go off about all things boxing. And hopefully, you guys are learning something new because I assure you that nobody in the boxing venues are discussing the sports of boxing and all its innards and insider uh, boxing uh, like the homie Ricky and I. I do tend to piece things together after researching and uh, diving deep. So whatever I say is not just fabrication or figments of my imagination or miscalculations. For the most part, they are opinions formulated after having dug in deep into reports, uh, finding supporting evidence for the things that I've been researching, and then reporting to you all. Now, nobody is telling you the things that I just told you. Nobody is pointing out where Mark Magsayo is fighting. Nobody is telling you why Mark Magsayo is fighting on a website boxing venue. Nobody is telling you why it is that Oscar de la Hoya has the nerve, the brazen nerve, to reject a fight with a fighter like Frank Martin when he is calling his own fighter for a fight. But I just pieced it for you. There is a cabal, a conspiracy of the more established boxing promoters that are ganging up on the PBC and their fighters to starve them out of dates, forced cheap fights on them, and that's a lot of the making of Mr. Al Heyman. Not necessarily the fighters. The fighters just trusted their advisor, Mr. Al Heyman, to put him up, make him stars, and so forth and so on. Hey, they're big dreamers, and they fell for that scam. Mr. Al Heyman ripped off everybody. So I won't fault the fighters, but I will fault those fighters that decided to renew their contracts after they should have read the cards clear enough. Stop looking at the world with rosy colored glasses. Stop the blinkers on their eyeballs and just look at the big picture. What is going on with my career under the PBC and Mr. Al Heyman? But nonetheless, I don't wish any of these fighters bad. I just wish that we get to see them fight more often. And now it seems that everybody's ganging up on these guys in order to get them to fight on the cheap and or starve them from fight nights in order to make their own inside fighters champions. Mr. Adam Hurley hops on and says, "Hey guys, what's up?" Mr. Adam Hurley, long time no see, buddy. And it's good to see you chime in on this wonderful Thursday night, December the 7th, 2023, the good year of our Lord. And I do, Mr. Hurley, I do hope you've been well of health and sane of mind. I guess maybe this is going to be a good opportunity to encourage Mr. Vargas, Mr. Adam Hurley, Sports Archives, even though he may have hopped off a little while ago, according to one of his messages from before, and see if you guys can tell me who do you guys think will win this weekend's fights and how. We do have Mr. Young Devin Haney, 25-year-old, going against the 35-year-old Mr. Regis Rugaru Progra from Louisiana, a Henderson, Nevada native in Haney, fighting a Louisiana, according to Mr. Regis Progra, East Louisiana fighter, now residing in the great state of Texas, uh, near Houston, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's Houston, not Houston with an H. The H is silent, and it actually sounds more like Y. So it's Houston. If you guys go to Texas down south, and you guys find yourself in the city of Houston, if you are from California, Washington, Oregon, Arizona, or any of those states adjacent to Texas, but not in Texas, you sure want to say Houston instead of Houston, because they will know that you're not a native, and then they will start giving you some crap. So there you go, guys. Mr. Adam Hurley is on me. My phone broke down once. I just got another. Good for you, Mr. Hurley. My phone has been cracked for a while now, and in fact, I was showering today, trying to get this a steamy hot shower going to clear out my nasal passages because I'm all backed up with nasal mucosity. And I was listening to some music, a band from Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, named Houndsmouth. Houndsmouth, my favorite album in the past 2 years, apparently, according to Spotify. One of their albums called Pink Neon Lights. I could listen to that front to back. I could go on cruising front to back. I could weld on cars front to back. I can do so much with that album. Go mountain biking, and I'll never get bored of it. Long story short, there I was, and something about the phone, maybe in how cracked and a bad way it is, water permeated into it, and I had to blow dry it and all kinds of stuff. My kids were doing all kinds of crazy stuff, trying to get the humidity from out the inside of the phone. Long story short, I'm only able to hop on this live very late, in fact, because my kids were trying to make my phone a bit operable again. But yeah, these things happen, Mr. Hurley. But it's a good thing that you are back, that you have hopefully a better phone, that you've upgraded, and that I hope it didn't come out too expensive, because some of these devices are just the pricey ways on how to sell our own personality and our own ideations to these overlords of technology. Mr. Vince Vargas says, A.H. Pound. What's up, Vince? Not much, been a while. Mr. Hammond Hurley responds, yeah, missed a lot of good boxing talk. Yeah, well, you know what, Mr. Hurley? Boxing talk is going to be here and there. You ain't going to miss much. You know what you can miss? You can miss the little moments. Those little things that, if you pay attention, make your life worthwhile. Sometimes it's just a little twinkle in your lady's eye. Sometimes it's just your kid coming back ecstatic after having scored a goal or assisted in scoring a goal. It's those little things. Boxing talk, it comes and goes. But without a doubt, don't get me wrong, boxing is significant. Boxing is beautiful. And I will miss it. I always miss it. Whenever we don't have lives, I always miss it. And I always miss you guys, our listeners. So I understand. But if you cannot hop on or listen, just enjoy the little things in life, and you'll be all right. The homie Ricky stepped off for a little while, guys. I'm sure this is the moment that he starts wrapping things up. So I would just like to, again, remind you who is going to fight. Regis Progress fighting Devin Haney. Who do you guys have for the win, and how? There's a couple of other fighters going on. There is going to be Montana Love fighting Australian Liam Paro, who is an incredible fighter. And if you guys don't know anything about Liam Paro, there are rumors and ruminations that Liam Paro actually stopped or hurt. Dun 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 dun. Shakur Stevens. Now, Liam Paro did not deny nor confirm that, because like a good sparring partner, he understands that sparring is just practice and work on a couple of things. But nonetheless, there is that rumor. And then there's, of course, Ebony Bridges, the Australian, the Aussie, fighting this Japanese lady, Mai Oshia. Uh, so that's going to be good. Eddie Hearn just picked up a Brazilian Olympian who has a record of 4-0. She's fighting another young lady named, I think her name was uh, Destiny Jordan. Very young lady. Those ladies look like they're gonna put up a nice little scrap, guys. So it looks very good. The undercard for Devin Haney looks pretty stacked and exciting. Now, I was mentioning, of course, if you guys do not have the money to pay for this pay per view, because it is going to be about $85 straight up and down, right? 25 for the DAZN subscription, $60 for the pay-per-view incentive. That's $85 out the door. But if you guys don't have it, guess what? On the Disney bundle, which includes Hulu and ESPN Plus, which should be about $15 a month. On ESPN Plus, there's going to be let's see, the boxing schedule. Uh, Robesi Ramirez is fighting Rafael Espinosa. Puerto Rican sensation Sander Sayas squares off against Spain's Jorge Fortea. Nice little fight right there. Ramirez Espinosa and Sayas Fortea will be broadcast live on ESPN, ESPN Deportes, and ESPN Plus, beginning at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. post meridian. And of course, there is going to be Richard Torres from Tulare, California. So it's going to be a good little event. And on Sunday, of course, we have CBS Chris Bidham Smith squaring off against Matheus Masternak. Another very good fight. That's going to be on Sky Sports. That's on the UK. And hopefully that's something that Mr. Bob Barham will pick up over here for ESPN and broadcast it for us. But I was hoping that maybe I can get you guys to tell me who you guys think will win. Okay. Mr. Adam Hurley says, yeah. Pro grab by an 8th round knockout. Although Haney does look solid right now. Yeah. See, I like that, Mr. Hurley. I really like that. And most of all, I respect that. And I'll tell you why I respect that. First off, I'm the type of boxing fan that never gives his opinion. I never call a fight. I'm not astute enough. I really don't. I really don't cross reference fights. I definitely don't do triangulation. I am a firm believer in the puncher's chance, and I'm a big time lover of the underdog. As such, I'm very biased. Biased because I'm always gonna root for the underdog. Does not necessarily mean that's gonna win. So because I'm an optimistic individual, and I obviously hope, I'm not a better. I'm not gonna do any of those crazy things. But all I can do is research and say the logical, reasonable sense. If we had to ask Spock, who is my icon and my namesake, warp speed, I would say, what can the analytical mind of Spock say if I asked him so and so in this question, right? And if we look at what's going on in the careers of Devin Haney and Regis Prograis, we have Regis Prograis, who's 35 years of age, if I'm not mistaken, much more experienced and much more powerful than Devin Haney. He's definitely a knockout artist. He's definitely the naturally heavier, acclimated fighter, not necessarily bigger in size. Because Devin Haney, today's uh, you know press conference, Devin Haney is the taller fighter. And of course, because he is the taller fighter by an inch or two, he can obviously bulk up better than Regis Prograis and still remain quite limber and fill up into that frame better than, let's say, Regis Prograis, who's a little bit stockier, and of course, with any weight that he adds on, he's only gonna get stumpier. Nonetheless, we do know that Regis Prograis is a naturally 140-pound fighter, and he's been throughout all of his career. That means that boy knows how to punch like a 140 fighter. He can take punches from 140 fighters. He's fought in the best. He arguably did not lose to Josh Taylor, who ended up becoming undisputed, but he has had some tough recent outings with Danielito Zorrilla. I believe he's a Puerto Rican, and who doesn't have a tough fight with a negative backwards fighter like that, who only throws a check hook here and there and makes you look bad. It's not like Danielito Zorrilla stood his ground and he started just molly whooping on this guy. No, 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 no. He just circled around and boxed. Okay, long story short. Like I said, if Regis Prograis stood right here in the middle of the ring and didn't move, it's up to Danielito Zorrilla to come and press the action. Why? Because if nothing happens in that fight, Regis Prograis still wins. So, that's just whatever. But we also do know that he did not look spectacular against Jose Chon Cepeda. That was a pretty good scrap until he ended up stopping that fighter who's never been stopped before. So we do know that Regis Rugaru Prograis is a good 140-pounder who is also a southpaw, but he's one of the most basic southpaws of all. Now let's see what we have in Devin Haney. In Devin Haney, we have a fresher fighter who is 10 years younger, who just barely came back from having won, quote unquote, won a very tough fight against a much shorter statured fighter who's actually fought in two weight classes lower than 135, and Vasily High Tech, the Matrix Nomaschenko. And we also know that he also, right prior to that, had fought at the same fighter twice, and ferocious George Cambosis. Right. We also do know that Jojo Diaz gave Devin Haney a good few tough rounds. And we do know Jojo Diaz is a three-division champion who's a southpaw, and he throws a lot of punches. And we also know that once Devin Haney can get rocked by even the man that used to fight smaller than him, and Jorge Linares, that he can stay rocked and he doesn't seem to recover very well. So, what do we have before us, gentlemen? We have before us a fight that promises much intrigue because we have a fighter that's obviously older and he has been looking a bit shabby recently, but he also can stop people and Regis Progra, and he is a southpaw. And then we have a fighter who is not powerful at all, who is not a knockout merchant, who has looked quite bad in his last fight against a much smaller man, and now he's fighting a much naturally bigger or at least heavier fighter than him, and basically an undefeated fighter and Regis Program. That's a very interesting set of circumstances, ladies and gentlemen. Very interesting set of circumstances. And whenever you watch these other YouTube channels talking about this fight, the most you'll hear people say is, "Oh, Devin Haney by a boring holding clinch fight." "Oh, well, you know what? Pillow fisted Devin Haney is going to win because he's going to throw one punch and then he's going to hold." As if Regis Prograis cannot break out the clinch. As if Regis Prograis has never been the naturally stronger and more experienced fighter. As if Regis Prograis cannot just hit uh, Devin Haney, go balls to the wall, and knock out the pillow fisted fighter. Yeah, all of a sudden, Regis Prograis is the simplest fighter that Devin Haney could fight. Even though Devin Haney just basically lost to a much smaller man in Lomachenko. And he hasn't knocked out anybody. He couldn't knock out George Kambosos, a much lighter, smaller man than Regis Prograis, and he couldn't knock out Lomachenko. So it's a very curious fight. And somehow, most people can just say Devin Haney will just masterclass him or unanimous decision or majority decision, but nobody seems to give Regis Prograis a chance. And I say this is a very good fight. I do have Devin Haney for the win just because of the circumstances that I mentioned. I believe, especially mostly, because I believe that Devin Haney has been one of the only few fighters in the sport of boxing now that you can see the progress and the improvement with every single fight. And I can't say that for any other fighter. I definitely can't say that I've seen any new things on the side of Regis Prograis. A no frills basic southpaw. Powerful, naturally a 140 pounder, but this is going to be an interesting fight. But I love the fact that you dug in deep and said Regis Prograis by an 8-round knockout. Wow, knockout. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. I love that because I'm not as confident, Mr. Early. I'm not as confident, you know. But I do agree that Devin Haney looks solid. I'm a fan of underdogs too. Yep. So that makes two of us, Mr. Hurley. Ouch. Oh yeah, it's a tough question, Mr. Hurley. Who are you rooting for, AJ or Otto Wallin? And it goes for you, Mr. Vargas. I guess maybe you can also answer that right there. Who are you rooting for, AJ or Otto Wallin? Okay, so that's a tough question, Mr. Hurley, because I love AJ. And let me explain why I love AJ. I love AJ because of his comportment, believe it or not. I know that's stupid for me to say, right? Like, who cares about these fighters' personality? But, one of the things that attracts one person to another person, especially in the sport of boxing, besides the excitement level that they provide you, is the personalities, right? Like, for example, I don't like a bombastic, arrogant, disrespectful fighter over, they say, the respectful, intelligent, smiley guy that's fan friendly. You know, I will always like the fan friendlier guy who respects the sport, respects his opponent, and doesn't have to go through all the shenanigans. And that, for the most part, has been Anthony Joshua. He's very well educated, well comported, and until most recently, he was that way. Until now, he's been taking up this bad man persona, and and he's been going through these crazy old tirades of bombasm and so forth and so on. And Ottawa Lean, he's just a guy who speaks the world as he sees it, right? He says, "I'm ready for this fight. I'm here to win." I think Anthony Joshua is going to be surprised. But he doesn't really say anything bad about Anthony Joshua. So if you had to ask me what I would like to see, well, Mr. Hurley, I will tell you this. I would like to watch Otto Wallin destroy AJ. But if that happens, we might not get to see Anthony Joshua versus Wilder, which is still a dream fight. Two men that used to be champions that could have been fought for undisputed, who are now both losers, and I mean losers not in the sense of in life, but just the fact that they have lost now and aren't champions to pit against each other. That's a dangerous combination. But imagine if Otto Wallin beats AJ. Wouldn't you want to watch Otto Wallin fight Wilder? Or what if Wilder loses to Parker? What about Wallin versus Parker? Or any of the other combination of fights? Wallin versus Dubois? Wallin versus Baby Miller? Wilder versus Baby Miller? Jarrell Miller? Anthony Joshua versus Jarrell Baby Miller? Like they would have fought at one time before Andy Ruiz stepped in because the other guy was found all hepped up on goofballs. Any combination of those fights, I want to see. So I guess to answer your question, Mr. Adam Hurley, Wallin all the way, even though I love AJ. Um, I heard the I heard the WBC changed the rules on clinching. You can only clinch so often in a round. Then they take away a point. So see, here's the thing, Mr. Hurley. This is so stupid. This is so stupid. And I can't believe that that the WBC, who's ran by this I don't want to say it, but almost a nincompoop, and Mr. Mauricio Suleiman, for him to change the rules on clinching, you can only clinch so often in a round, then they take away a point. I just would like to explain that there is a difference between holding and clinching. Holding, for the most part, is a tactic used usually by the weakened, hurt fighter in order to stall the oncoming onslaught of the foe that has him hurt. It is, in essence, a survival tactic that's meant to deter action. That is what holding is. And holding is illegal. Because if you're supposed to get knocked out, you're supposed to get knocked out. Now, clinching, on the other hand, clinching is close quarter combat meant to frame and post your nemesis in order to find spots where you can attack and in close quarters perpetuate damage when the other opponent thinks that he is holding. In other words, clinching is an offensive method of point attaining. So when people confuse the two, it offends me because I'm a firm believer in clinching. Why? Because my favorite current fighter, Vasily Lomachenko, is a master clincher. And he's not a holder. He's a master clincher. Just go back and watch what he did to Nakatila. Just go watch how he did it. They tangle up. It's entanglement, by the way. It's entanglement. You get their hands, you move one hand down open that up, throw a little punch in between, and so forth and so on. And he created just enough distance after he opened them up in close quarters combat, where he threw this little left hook and he knocked that boy. If I'm not mistaken, it was a left hook and knocked that boy down from about 6 inches away. That's clinching. That differs from what somebody like Devin Haney has done before and Shakur Stevens has done before, which is basically throw a punch and negate the counter attack from the nemesis by basically using both arms and holding their opponent by basically limiting the movement of the opponent's arms. You see what I'm saying? And in clinching, that differs. So when the WBC says something stupid, like clinching is going to be limited to when it could be used, then they make a mistake of confusing clinching with holding. Again, one is naturally a type of attack and point attaining meant to gain points and the advantage over your nemesis who is less trained in clinching. And the other one is a negative attempt at defense meant to stop the onslaught and limit the movement of your foe. So the WBC and Mr. Suleiman is just making a big mistake when they confuse the two and they start trying to change the rules and they're really trying too hard. Basically, just again proving that the WBC is one of the worst organizations that can partake in the sport of boxing, and they are slowly but surely ruining the sport that I love. I I focus heavily on clinching because clinching is an underappreciated and understudied art form in the sport of boxing. It's much more commonly used and appreciated in MMA and in Muay Thai and in kickboxing and so forth and so on. And it is lamentable that somebody like Mauricio Suleiman at the PBC would confuse the two. Okay, and we'll go on and talk a little bit more about some of the other crazy shenanigans that the PBC, that the WBC just brought up. Because I'm not too sure if you guys know this, but the WBC is having their conference, and we'll go into that a little bit more. Let's see what our listeners say. Uh, Mr. Vince Vargas says, one Puerto Rican fighter I like is Sanders Sayas. Yeah, who doesn't like Sanders Sayas, Mr. Vargas? That guy is a threat. He's a cool guy. Yeah, absolutely. Young man who is one on the come up, top rank fighter. Yeah. Sanders Sayas is probably the next great Puerto Rican fighter. Um, I don't know who he reminds me of. Some people say Cotto, but I just think that's just simple. This is simple conclusion. I think he is his own man. But he's definitely one that speaks English and Spanish. So in that sense, and he's a good-looking guy. So in that sense, he resembles a lot of the formula that Miguel Cotto had for making himself. And mind you, Miguel Cotto was my favorite fighter for a very long time. So I agree with you. He's a very cool cat. He's the next guy up, and I can't wait to see him step up. He actually said that he would beat Tim Sue, that he believes that he's the next man up. And wow, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure. Tim Sue and Sanders Sayas, that's an incredible fight, if ever one can be set up. Homie Ricky salutes Mr. Adam Hurley. Long time no see, brother. I have AJ beating Wallin and Devin beating Regis, is what the homie Ricky says. And Mr. Hurley says, I'm going for Wallin also. He read a lot of my comments in the chat and the podcast, and it was really cool. That's awesome. I love it when our fighters engage the listeners, because that's how you ingratiate yourself and develop a fan base. Being cool, talking to these people, and just coming down to their level and saying, "Hey, I may be a fighter, but I'm a regular Joe just like you." Homie Ricky says Sado Walina has good skills. Hopefully, AJ has regained his toughness because he's relying too much on his boxing skills when he should rely more on his strength. Been good, brother. A lot of changes, but really excited for what's to come in the future years. He responds to Adam Hurley because homie Ricky has big plans. And I'll tell you one thing about the homie Ricky. When the homie Ricky sets out to do something, man, oh man, that's a relentless force. If he wants to do it, he's gonna get it done. Mr. Adam Hurley says, "Cool, Ricky. Good to hear." Entanglement, the breakout word of 2023, Jada Smith. Ha ha ha. Entanglement, Jada Pinkett Smith. Yeah. Laughy ha ha ha's, smiley, teary eyed faces. That's an obvious take at speed and a better take at sender. Sayas is the next boxing superstar, just not Puerto Rican star. Yeah, that may be true. The homie Ricky, he might just be a breakout star, transcending the identity of a Puerto Rican or a Boricua, and just saying he is a star. And Mr. Adam Hurley states, Speed has a great radio voice. That's hilarious. So let us proceed, ladies and gentlemen, and start wrapping this up by pointing out, as Mr. Adam Hurley pointed out to us, some of the things that the WBC has been doing as of late. And let's just start by going to this report. Because again, I'm not too sure if you guys know this, but the WBC has been having their convention, right? And FightNews.com reports, according to a report written by himself, Mr. Mauricio Suleiman, president of the WBC, son of Jose Suleiman. He first starts out by saying the WBC had a very bad week because three beloved ladies, uh, Marta Mondragon, wife of Mr. Manuel Mondragon, she's now rested in peace. Miss Violet Lewis, mother of Lennox Lewis, passed away. And Gloria Mercanti, wife of the legendary referee Arthur Mercanti, is also now resting with the angels. And he goes on to say that the convention is currently taking place in Uzbekistan, and and it was a resounding success. And more work is being done to circulate to all WBC members from all 176 affiliated countries all of the going-ons and the things that they've developed, right? And we can just gloss over a couple of these things right here. And one of the things that they said is that one of the oldest rules in boxing has disappeared, uh, that has disappeared now under their guidance, is the phrase that is used around the world when somebody wants to stop a fight, which is "don't throw in the towel." Don't throw in the towel is no longer the way the corner requests the referee to stop the fight. He goes on. Currently, many boxing commissions ask that the corner inform the inspector, and he gets into the ring to inform the referee. However, we have seen with concern how, on many occasions, the fighters receive further stunning blows while the inspector tries to gain communication with the referee. For this reason, we have introduced the red towel so that the fight can be stopped in this corner. Prompt and timely clarification and innovation. So now they're going to start throwing in the red towel to indicate that a fight has to be done. And now here's another very interesting one. Another one of the new measures that will be remembered in years to come as historic is the financial education and savings program, in which we managed to design a financial product with GBM offering individual accounts for boxers without risk and with various distinct advantages. For this reason, the WBC will ask, encourage, and recommend the fighter to prudently retain a percentage from his fight purses as a great incentive to save for the future. The WBC will return to the fighter the percentage that such decides to save from their purse as an incentive to save for the future. This, ladies and gentlemen, this seems to be a very good move in the step direction. We do know that boxing The sport of boxing is different than a lot of other sports because there is no union of boxers. It is basically a contract between a fighter and whatever promotion and or management company that decides to venture with them into business in order to make fights happen and receive some form of remuneration. But we do know that a lot of these fighters, because they come from very poor and low backgrounds, they don't have either the financial wherewithal and or knowledge in order to use their money wisely and especially store it as a nest egg for a tough day. So we do find out that a lot of our champions are living in the streets, drug addicted, dying horrible deaths. Like I think not Tarver. Winky Wright was it one of these fighters that achieved this incredible acclaim, and then all of a sudden they became drug addicts and died in Florida or whatever, because nobody ever educates them on how to save their money, invest their money for their future, and then all of a sudden we see them in the streets suffering. And it seems like the WBC is creating some kind of a financial product with some company called GBM in order to create individual account for boxers where they stash their money without risk and with various distinct advantages, similar to what it seems like a 401k or a 503 or whatever it is that that some of these companies provide nowadays. I hope that what they're also saying is that the WBC is willing to put in a certain percentage to match them, but I don't hear that. I just think it's some kind of a financial company that's willing to save their money so that it works for them without the risk of decreasing in value by the depreciation of inflation and whatnot, and maybe some slight returns. I hope that is a good thing for them, um, and so forth and so on. Uh, oh, this is where Mr. Adam Hurley talks about it, right? We will also seek to penalize the infamous holding when it is excessive and interferes with the fight. If there is a distinct difference between the clinch and deliberate holding. Okay, there you go. See, so, Mr. Hurley, you were partially wrong. They are gonna penalize holding, but it does go on to say that there is a distinction between clinching and deliberate holding. Yeah, and he goes on to say the latter is used as a strategy and disruption of combat. Yep, a form of defense, which is illegal and will be penalized. There will also continue to be zero tolerance for rabbit punches, which are highly dangerous, and some other mechanics that will continue to be implemented. That's good. Okay, I thought for a second there that Mr. Mauricio Suleiman was a nincompoop. Oh, and this is where I want to end this live, sort of, guys, because as a proponent of women's boxing, I have done extensive research on why it is that the Muhammad Ali Act has a segment that limits women's boxing to 10 round fights for championships and at most in duration 2 minutes. When most recently, in the past few months, Ms. Amanda Serrano, along with a lot of other notable champions and former fighters, have signed on to this pledge to take on championship fights for 12 rounds, 3 minutes each. And the other companies have welcomed it. The WBA, the IBF, and the WBO have said, okay, we're good for it. The WBC is the one holdout, and they say it's a no go. Now, Mr. Suleiman is absolutely against women fighting for 12 rounds, especially 12 rounds, 3 minutes each. And he still goes on and says the following. One of the big topics was also women's boxing and the presentation that the medical committee presented at the plenary session. It was unanimously recommended by the governing board of our organization to maintain the 2 minute rounds and the fight to a maximum of 10 rounds. The physiognomic differences, signs, and distinctions between men and women were reviewed, considered, and contemplated in detail, and with compelling information to maintain maximum protection for women. It is not about discrimination, inequality, or sexism. It is all about imminent protection and minimizing the risks of accident for women. How cavalier! What a gentleman! How cavalier of our senior Mr. Maurice Suleiman. Mr. Suleiman, you sound like a sexist. You sound like a sexist protecting women and not protecting the men equally. Aren't you for equality, sir? Do are women so precious that they should not be subjected to violence, sir? Is a man beating up on a female when they're fighting, sir? Or is it the same physiognomy or and anatomy of a woman taking on the same physiognomy of a woman and the anatomy of another woman when they're squaring off in the ring? Similar to what a man and a man does when they decide to fight each other. Sir, I completely disagree with you. You are trying to be a caballero. You sound old fashioned. You sound out of date. You, at the same time, expose men to more harm unfairly. And you're trying to protect women when all they want to do is fight longer and more violently in order to bring more eyes to their sport, in order for them to receive better recompense than they have. You are on the wrong side of the sport, and you will be on the wrong side of history, Mr. Suleiman. And to respond to that, Miss Serrano decides to vacate her WBC title. And she states, I love boxing. I have given my life to the sport. No phone, no boyfriend, no parties, just boxing. I am the only boxer, male or female, from Puerto Rico to become undisputed champion. I am the only female boxer to have won titles in 7 divisions. I am the first female boxer, along with Katie Taylor, of course, to headline Madison Square Garden. I am the first female boxer to make 7 figures from a fight, and the same from sponsors. I am the first undisputed female champion to fight 12 3-minute rounds. Moving forward, if a sanctioning body does not want to give me and my fellow fighters the choice to fight the same as the men, then I will not be fighting for that sanctioning body. The WBC has refused to evolve the sport for equality, so I am relinquishing their title. Thank you to the sanctioning bodies who have evolved for equality. If you want to face me in the ring, you have a choice. I've made mine. Thank you all, to all my fellow fighters who have stood with me. Thank you to my team. Thank you to my fans. And above all, thank you, God. I am blessed. Miss Amanda Serrano has matched Miss Katie Taylor as the greatest women proponents of the sport and equality, similar to Muhammad Ali. If you know anything about what these women have done in this sport and what they continue to do now, you know what I'm talking about. Miss Katie Taylor, as of her last fight, when she retained her undisputed status against Miss Chantel Cameron in another very violent affair just a couple of weeks ago, she said, if you guys want to fight 12 3-minute rounds, let's do it. She's ready for it. After being a holdout for that type of fight, she said she's ready for it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without a doubt, there is still a lot of conflicts, a lot of challenges that face the women's sport in order to not only safely, but efficiently transition to a sport where they can fight 12 rounds, 3 minutes each. Well, for one, you got to understand, they're still currently fighting 2-minute rounds. and they're still fighting before they get to a championship status, 8 rounds. So they're fighting 8 rounds and 2 minutes each. At the championship level, they are fighting 10 rounds, 2 minutes each. And you cannot all of a sudden just have one fight, 10 rounds, 2 minutes each, and then say, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. All of a sudden, we're going to fight 12 rounds, 3 minutes each, because that's almost double the fight. So the first thing that women have to decide is this. Are you going to start making it 12 rounds, 2 minutes each? Or are you going to start making all the fights that you fight 3 minutes each? Because it's going to matter. You cannot just go from 10 twos to 12 threes. That's too much of a change. Either add more minutes to each round or raise it up by 2 rounds, but you have to smoothly transition. And nobody has brought that to anybody's attention either. They do talk about how women want to fight 12 threes instead of 10 twos, but nobody ever says how they want to transition and progress towards that. And I'm saying they have to do it now. Either start by making it 3 minutes now, going forward, make them 12 2 minutes. I don't have a problem with that. 12 2 minutes. But if you guys want to go 3 minutes for 12 rounds, you have to start adding that one extra minute now. Right now. No ifs, ands, or buts. No pussyfooting around. The ladies and the conditioning bodies have to agree on how they're going to promote that, how they're going to allow it. But Miss Amanda Serrano decided to give up her belt in protest, and that's what I told you guys. That's what I told you guys needed to be done 2 months ago when I made that I am very proud of that episode of our live with the homie Ricky when I made a 3 hour report on this here subject. You guys can go back and look at it. No one else reported. Because, yeah, there's men and women that are fans of the sport, but they did not dug in deep nor delve into these matters like I did. Why? Because I respect your time. I value the contribution of these fighters towards my entertainment and my bloodthirst. But this is just a continuation. I said somebody needed to step up. Somebody needed to give up those belts. And Miss Amanda Serrano, after Mauricio Suleiman said, we're sticking to 10 twos, she protested. She took the next step, gave up that belt. And I wonder who's next. I wonder if Miss Katie Taylor decides to stick to her guns, keep her word to what she said. She's willing to fight 12 threes. Maybe she's next to give up. Why not? She's done so much for the women's sport. She might as well just hop on to the side of Miss Amanda Serrano, one of her better friends now, and say, you know what? Let's do this. Incredible. Really incredible. Let's see what our listeners have been saying. The homie Ricky says, I think you just gave Speed a hard on with that comment. I'm not too sure what that's about. Mr. Adam Hurley says, I just smoked a joint and got way too high. It's legal in AC now. Whoa, is that so, Mr. Hurley? Was it illegal to smoke marijuana in the in Arizona? That's crazy. You guys are so close to California. You would think that you guys would be able to smoke long time ago. But if that is your thing, and you want to partake in the recreation or medicinal properties of marijuana, I encourage you to live a happy life doing so. I can tell you right off the bat, the marijuana has been a part of my life. Well, had been a part of my life and informing me who I became to be as an individual for let's see how long I smoked. 14. I'm 44 now, so that's 30 years. Uh, I stopped smoking like about 3 years ago. So like about 27 years of my life. And sometimes whenever I go to like a reggae festival, I'll smoke a doobie. But otherwise, for about 27 years of my life, I was an avid marijuana smoker. I grew it. I ended up making remedies out of it, selling it in the toughest of my days when I was completely broke, selling houses for $60 just to pay the water bill. Very hard times, Mr. Hurley. But I tell you one thing: if you can grow your own, there's nothing better. Nothing better. Let's see where we'll go with this. Uh, oh shit, nice brother, says the homie Ricky. When did it become legalized? I think it was 2022, maybe 2020, Ricky. With 3 minute rounds, these female fighters will become a lot more famous. Absolutely, Mr. Hurley. Absolutely. They need that. These little short, close your eyes and miss the action kind of fights that they've been putting on for years now. 2 minute rounds. Look, you can get a lot of action. But what if you're a natural fighter, like a boxer, like let's say that girl from Australia, or New Zealand, the one that hangs out with Mr. Eddie Hearn a lot. I can't remember what her name is. What if you're just those type of fighters that just boxes a lot and doesn't throw a lot of actions? Imagine 2 minute rounds where nobody throws punches because they're just natural boxers. Boring. There's no action, no violence. Why do I want to watch that? More violent, of course, absolutely. Miss Amanda Serrano said that, homie Ricky. She's the one who, as of today, relinquished her WBC belt. Absolutely, I like her stance too. Even though I'm not in favor for 3 minute women rounds, I'm not going to knock her stance. And Quan Chi says, "Blessings, may Chinook be with you." Thank you very much. Katie Taylor versus Clarissa Shields, the best fight to make. Well, that's a tough fight. Quan Chi and Good a night to use. Clarissa Shields, she's a big girl. I think she's fought in like up to like 168 or something like that with Miss Marshall. And Katie Taylor, I think she just fought at 135. So it's gonna be one of those things that it's just gonna be impossible to make a fight happen. I have heard though some things from Miss Clarissa Shields saying that Katie Taylor should go up and wait to fight her. But who wants to see a very short, stumpy fighter, trying to make a fight like at 160, looking ridiculous like that? And Quan Chi states Tim Bradley is so biased. Well, Tim Bradley is also a legend and a Hall of Famer. He's entitled to his erroneous opinion. And the homie Ricky says, "Yeah, Tim Bradley is gay for some ESPN fighters, especially Shakur." Shaking my head. That nigga Tim not normal. Let's see. We are about to wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. I hope we've enlightened you all. I know that the homie Ricky at the outset of this here live discussed Subriel Matias, uh, how Richardson Hitchens is saying he would fight him, but he wouldn't fight him under the IBF. So in other words, he would duck him because he needs the whole weight advantage. It's a way of ducking from Richardson Hitchens. So why did he even mention Subriel Matias? It's almost like he's trying to ride coattails on the fact that everybody's talking about what a killer Subriel Matias is. So he's trying to say, I would fight a killer. I would fight a killer. Ridiculous. Just keep quiet if you don't want to fight him. You see. Let's see what else is new. Teofimo Lopez and Subriel Matias. He states he's very easy to beat. He'll go out in 4. Now, I'm not too sure if you guys were catching this here live as it was going on. There was a live on a show called The Boxing Voice, which they call themselves the Breakfast Club of boxing. If I'm not mistaken, they were going on live and showing some videos. And in one of those videos, Subriel Matias was being interviewed in the Pro Box app by the Spanish commentators. I think it was Juan Manuel Marquez or one of those guys, right? And he showed his fist. He goes, "Look, guys, I was fighting like this," and he showed his. Let me see. He showed his left hand fist, and his left hand fist was tumescent. It was blown up, fat, and tumescent. The knuckles were rounded off. Apparently, he sustained some kind of an injury in his last fight. And he says, "I fought like this, guys." And he goes, "Look at my right hand." And he showed his right hand. And he goes, "My right hand was injured in the wrist." And I'm not too sure if it happened during the fight or if it happened on towards the the closing of the fight as it was closing in on the fight. Not too sure when it happened, but basically he was showing his fist fresh off the fight, and he was saying that he had fought with those injuries, right? And I didn't get to listen to the rest of the live, but I believe that Teofimo Lopez sent an offer to Subriel Matias. If I'm not mistaken, guys, no, don't quote me. You guys can go back to the Boxing Voice. They had a live tonight, uh, and you can, correct me if I'm wrong or otherwise. But it sounded like Teofimo Lopez and that camp sent Subriel Matias an offer to fight, and that apparently the IBF disallowed it. The IBF disallowed negotiations while Subriel Matias had obvious injuries. Now, if that is true, guys, that's incredible. That means Teofimo Lopez, he ain't shying away from that. He wants that. And that's incredible because it just continues to prove the kind of valor that these young fighters have. Fighters like Devin Haney, fighters like Teofimo Lopez, not Ryan Garcia, but those kind of fighters that are actually wanting those crazy, incredible fights. And apparently, Subriel Matias, who said, "Yeah, I'll fight," because he said he would like to fight the winner of Regis Progra and Devin Haney, but he particularly focused on Regis Progra, and he said, "I would destroy that boy." I think he may have said something worse than that. But long story short, it sounds like it sounds like Teofimo Lopez and his crew were trying to negotiate a fight with Subriel Matias, who we know he's an actual killer. He killed Maxim Dadashev in the ring, and he stopped all of his fighters, knocked him out, or made him quit on the stool. And he reached out to him, and it sounded like the IBF prohibited negotiations on account that Subriel Matias was noticeably hurt. What do you guys think about that? If I'm correct, that is incredible news. I just think that's crazy. Um, Let me see. This is exactly what Subriel Matias had stated about wanting to see the fighter, the winner between Haney and Progra. He says it would be an honor to challenge for the WBF to fight Haney if he beat Progra, right? Uh, but he says about Progra, he says that he's slow but strong, and he warns that he'll send him to the hospital if they tangle. That's what he said. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Okay, so let's see. Let's read a couple of these messages before I call it a night. Matias and Tio, the best at 140. Yeah, I agree, Quan Chi. I agree. Those guys are incredibly skillful. And I don't even take away anything from Reach's program. In fact, why should Matias be credited so much when Matias has knocked out and stopped who again? Right? I mean, I know he's fighting all of his mandatories and knocking him out and everything, but what names are there that you can say, oh, well, hey, this guy's a former champion. Oh, hey, this guy beat this guy and that guy beat that guy. Don't know any of them, really. Let me see. But yeah, I do agree. Tio definitely can be one of the best. It's just that sometimes he's like, inconsistent. Shakur ran like a chicken. Shakur lost to Edwin. Horrible performance from Shakur. Matias, Tio, Sander Martin, Jack Catterall, Regis Program 140. Incredible. 140 is stacked. Um, Tank, not Shakur, should be on the pound for pound list. Tank is a good fighter, but his resume doesn't speak of great but good. Shakur, neither, just a weight bully. Exactly 100. Mr. Adam Hurley states, Tio's bossy to be willing to take on Matthias. I agree. And the homie Ricky states, Naoya, Bud, Usyk, Canelo, Tio, Bam, Rodriguez, Bam Rodriguez, Better BF, Bivol, Jamal, Navarrete. Wow. All those names, guys, all those names. Incredible. Incredible. All good names. I agree, Quan Chi. Ricky, all of those are good names. One hundo. And that added Tim Sue at 11. He's shown great growth. Um, yeah. Tim Sue is incredible. Um, I really do apologize, guys. I'm still quite sickly. How good was a good prime Tank Davis? Well, he's still prime, I guess. I don't know. It's like, but you know what, Quan Chi? I'm not the biggest fan of Tank Davis. I think his career is incredible because he's created his own lane. He's a guy that he's able to navigate and work around in the fringes of the boxing echelons without paying the sanctioning bodies the big money and still convincing people to pay big bucks to see him in attendance or pay per view to have him fight smaller men and baby belt holders. It's incredible what he's done. It's almost like he's protesting the sanctioning bodies, protesting the desire of the fans, is saying, "Watch me make money doing whatever the heck I want," and it's working for him. It's hard to hate the guy. But it's also hard to love the guy because you want to see him against the names that are paying the big money and the sanctioning fees to take on the best fighters for the real belts. But I'm not going to talk bad about the guy because I know that he's very skillful, and I know that fighters have said, "Man, Tank is another deal. I've sparred with the guy. Tank is another deal. His IQ is crazy." So that's all that I can say about that guy. Mayweather Harbor promoter, he promotes Tank more than Rolly. Yeah. Well, hopefully he promotes Tank more than Rolly because I don't want to watch Rolly ever. That guy is, jeez. I mean, he's hilarious and all, but no, that's you cannot lose a fight to a 40-year-old Ismael Barroso and still get granted a free victory off of an incredibly unnecessary stoppage, uh, and expect you know Mayweather to do you any more favors because that's as deep a favor as it gets. The best thing homie Ricky saw was against Leo Santa Cruz, Pedraza, and Mario Barrios. The rest of his career is whack. Brody lost to that old dude. For smiley faces. Yeah, I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun. It really has. And I am glad that we do have new listeners. Quan Chi, sir or lady, I'm not too sure. I shouldn't jump to conclusions and assume that all of our listeners are gentlemen, but I do call everybody a gentleman or a gentle lady. I am glad that you have hopped on to this your live and chatted with us. We love engagement. Come back again. We will likely have an event, hopefully, if we can convince the homie Ricky to do so, on Saturday when all the fights are taking place. The homie Ricky, thank you again for allowing me to hop on this live. Mr. Adam Hurley, I'm so happy you're back. I'm so happy you have a phone. I hope that you can come visit us more often. I respect your opinion. I actually respect it deeply because you're not one of those fair weather fans that are saying, "Oh, Devin Haney is a pillow fisted fighter that is almost knocked out by Linares, lost to Lomachenko." You're not saying that. You're saying because of that, I got the natural 140-pound champion who's knocked out a lot of his opponents, and he's only lost to a former undisputed champion. And Josh Taylor reaches pro gra for a knockout, and you said on the eight. I valued that courage and that confidence of knowing what you think about these fighters, because it's hard for me to really like choose victories on fights with such facility. I just don't trust myself. Um, Sports Archive. I'm sure you're not here. You always tend to sleep early, and maybe you're just in another part of the world. Nonetheless, always good to see you, Mr. Vince Vargas. If that is you on that thumbnail on that little icon, that's a cool looking character, man. That's a cool looking man right there. And I also love having you here every day, Mr. Vargas. Come on again every time. You are the greatest. Mr. Adam Hurley, again, you have to come over more often. The homie Ricky, you are you're all right. You're all right. You're all right. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun. I could do this all day. But I am a 44-year-old man that haven't drank his coffee. I've been sick. Uh, I did as much as I could. But I do bid you adieu. I hope you sleep with the angels and slumber and have the best of dreams. I hope you win $1 million tomorrow by scratching the lottery ticket. And yes, Mr. Vargas, like you say to Mr. Quan Chi, pound. Good night, good luck, and farewell.